Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Hooligan Chronicles. And today we have a little bit of an unusual situation. We announced that Justin's going to be joining us. Many of you know him as the Supplement Snoop, and really last minute surprise, Robert was pressured to join us as well. He even went and got some bourbon because he knows that this shit might go to directions that are not expected, or actually, when it comes to us, it's probably expected by now.
Wait. So that was barrel proof, Elijah Craig?
Yes, this was a
Oh,
gift from
oh man,
G Money Gerhard.
he got you that as a gift.
Yes.
That's an expensive bottle of bourbon, man.
We don't want to know what you did for that.
Yeah, really. And then not to mention that, but it's like 125 proof. So we'll make sure we ask Robert the questions
Whoa,
as
whoa,
that goes on.
121 proof.
121. Okay.
121.
So it's a little
Jesus.
bit lower.
Well, right. So I said we were going to do the podcast together, and I was like, I can't remember the last time I did a podcast without supplement engineer, so I can't just jump
Yeah,
right
so
back in here without
this
him.
gonna ease you right into it.
Right now, I feel right. Everybody's comfortable. Everybody's gonna have a good time.
Everybody is super comfortable, and let's have some fun. So I don't see it as an interview. I see it more of just three buddies getting together, talking some shit, and having some fun. Robert is about to get drunk, so this is gonna be interesting. Um, but you know what? Let's start nice and easy. And a lot of people know who Justin is, obviously, especially people from within the industry. And obviously, the app that you created, the online group that you have that is doing very, very well. You have very loyal followers. I mean, they probably more like friends, like family right now than anything else, because I see the same faces, same people. I mean, same names. Um, but let's start with basics. Like, what brought you into the supplement industry? How did you get started?
Man, this is we'll go way back in time because I tell this story a lot, and a lot of times I share this story because now we're involved in a lot of business things, and we talk about we run into a lot of entrepreneurs and things like that, and I tell people, I'm like, look, when I got into the supplement space, I didn't know anything about it. Like a lot of people in this space, a lot of people started at GNC, a lot of people use supplements. You sort of came through watching Price Plow, watching Robert, at Price Plow, and like that's how you got introduced to, like a lot of supplements things. So the one day long story short, I started to really kind of pay attention. I was working full time career, had our forever home, married, the whole 9 yards, and I was one of those people that I don't have time to search this stuff, right? I have my protein, I have my pre workout, and I work, 12 hours a day, and then you go and try to get a workout in, and then you go home, take care of the house, your wife and everything like that. So I started taking a more active interest in what was in supplements. And I remember the one day I was looking at a tub of whey protein in my kitchen, and it was gold standard, Optimum Nutrition, what everybody used, at the time. And I'm looking at these ingredients at the bottom, and I'm like, I don't understand what any of this stuff is, right? I was like, is this stuff even healthy? It was like one of those times during the internet where you'd start to read stuff, and there was a lot of scare tactics that still go on today about artificial sweeteners and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, I started looking, and I'm like, well, there's got to be an app in the store to just tell me all the information I need to know quickly, because I started to look online, and there was all this like confusing literature and studies, and then there was a lot of information about ingredients was advertisements from companies, and I'm like, well, I don't want to hear what a company trying to sell to me has to say. I want to know what this stuff really is. So I go to look for an app in the store, and I'm like, there's no app. I'm like, well, that's weird. So I'm trying hard, and I was like, okay, I feel like this needs to be a thing. Now I have no idea about coding or how to make an app or how to do the process. I know nothing about supplements, but I decided, like, right in that moment right there, I was like, there needs to be an educational tool to help people understand how, like, what this stuff actually is, because it became so difficult when I started looking. So I always tell people, don't think you have to be perfect, to start a business. Like, right off the bat, I literally had to Google, how do I make an app, right, online? And I got totally screwed over like 3 different times, like sending money to people and then ghosted me, and companies that got lawsuits later on. But then I started to actually like go ingredient by ingredient, and I started to realize how much effing work this was going to be. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? So like each night I was after work, and I was started going to school at the time too. I was sitting there building this database, and all I was doing was basically reading and trying to teach myself in a way how the ingredients themselves, like I didn't want to just read and regurgitate them. I'm kind of like one of those people, like I want to know why, like how does this work? How does this really, how does that fit into my life kind of thing? It wasn't until after I really got done with the app that I started to actually like interject myself into the supplement space and started to meet all these people, and I realized what a tight community it was. And actually I started seeing Robert on Price Plow videos, and I've actually talked about this, him and I on our podcast. I said he was, it was CJ back then, it was Mike, and it was Robert. And I remember watching a few videos, and CJ, I've talked to CJ a few times, like he was funny and kind of did his thing, and Mike was doing his thing. I was like, but for what I wanted, I was like, that guy right there, Robert, that's a guy I want to talk to. Like, it would be really cool to talk to Robert someday and just kind of hang out. And then fast forward, 2 years or whatever it was, and we were doing like a weekly podcast together. So I took a very unconventional, because I was just a customer. I still am. I still look at myself as just a customer, just trying to figure out how does the like normal, just average person who is trying to remain healthy, if they don't have the time to do this, they're trying to take care of their kids and their life, and life is crazy. How do we like connect those dots for them? How do these ingredients, how can we simply and quickly say, this is how this can help your life? Not just that tyrosine does this, right? But what does that mean to you? How does that help you be a better dad? Does it help you be a better husband? Is it more productive at work? Stuff like that. So long story short, I had no idea what I was doing. Totally made about 1 billion mistakes, no clue. And then I started to meet people within the space that I remember Eddie was the one that linked us up. He was like, you gotta meet Rob. You gotta meet Rob. You guys, he's like, you guys, I think you'll get along really well. You might hate each other. He's like, because you're both like, but he like did a video the one day. He was hanging out with you, and it was like the most awkward thing ever. Eddie was just he didn't give a shit kind of guy. He's like, this is Robbie. So long story short, I guess. I think. Did we freeze?
No.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of got me started down the path. And then like I said, I really had no idea how the industry itself worked. Where, like, who the people were. I always tell this to people. I got started, I liked people's brands and products and stuff before I ever knew the people. So there was this, I started to see how, the tight-knit community and a lot of people, everyone knew each other, and I was coming sort of from the outside. So I kind of felt like it was a little different perspective, on the whole thing. So
It's interesting that you brought up Eddie, because I remember that first time I heard about you was actually from Eddie as well. He pretty much introduced us, and he spoke very, very highly of you. But you mentioned Price Plow and Robert, and I do agree with you. I mean, everybody knows, and we'll get to everything, I guess, how I feel about Price Plow as a channel. But I actually respected Price Plow a hell of a lot when Robert was part of it. Mm-hmm. Because this is, again, sometimes people think that we are talking shit. It's not talking shit when it's the truth and based on facts. So it's just a matter of not even an opinion. I learned a lot from Price Plow because of Robert, because it was very educational, and Robert will be, I think the fact that he put Supplement Nerd on there, I think it's very, very appropriate, because that's who he is, and he doesn't shy away from that. But I think that maybe an average guy will not find it very entertaining. Maybe he doesn't talk shit the way we do and stuff like that. But guys like us learn a lot from him. Mm-hmm. which is true. I mean, I still pretty much on a daily basis, I bounce ideas off of him. We talk all the time, and I think it's very, very important. But you have today, if we fast forward to today, Supplement Snoop, it is what it is. But you have on one hand, that this is very interesting. You have Price Plow and Fitness Informant, for example. I believe that they kind of similar in a way in their approach.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have, on the other hand, you have Stacked, who I think kind of is in a league of his own because Shane is just completely different.
Yeah.
and then you have guys like Eddie. I mean, I know Eddie doesn't do it anymore, but nevertheless, you understand what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You have Eddie, you have Review Brothers, you have DJ, you have Ari. You have those guys who are a little bit more stim junkie approach and a little bit more aggressive and stuff like that. So you have, like, let's call it three corners, the different kind of, that they hit the different aspects, I guess, of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And they each have their following, they each have their fan club and stuff like that. Where do you see yourself fit more with which one of them? Or do you think that you're different or have a little bit of each? Because knowing you, I know that you can appreciate stuff like, for example, a little bit more nerdy, like Robert does, like properly those supplements and the science behind it and stuff like that. But today you fucking sent me a top of expired assassin with DMA in it. And I was like, the fuck is wrong with this guy? He's gonna die,
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely have that stim junkie persona within you as well. So it's very, very hard to understand which way you're leaning to more to. I mean, you get my point. So, answer that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because I think that's what sometimes I fall into. I don't want to say it's a trap, but there's sometimes when you mention Price Plow and Fitness Informant, I would say maybe go out of my way to not, and this is nothing against them, what they do.
No, just facts.
People, I don't want to be because when I first kind of started going, people were starting to sort of lump us together. And I'm like, I don't think that this is the way that I do things. And so I wanted to sort of distance myself from that. And then there's people that do reviews that love doing it. And I started doing reviews a little bit, and it just wasn't really like my thing. Reviews were too much, I don't know how to put it. You're kind of like stuck in the middle. What I noticed was one thing that, I didn't notice it at the time, but looking back, what I was doing when I first kind of started, I was talking to so many people all the time. I mean, like 24/7, I was talking to customers, and I was learning. It's been the best experience of my life because I grew up in a small town, very small community. You only knew who was around you, kind of thing. So I started to open up questions, and I had all these dialogues with people from all walks of life, man. Like, everyone, from women, men, athletes, just, weekend warriors, the whole 9 yards. And I started to hear their stories and their struggles with supplements, and where I kind of found myself going towards, because I felt I was the same way. That's who I identified with. I was like helping them sort of connect the dots. Like, most of my work is done through DMs and messages with people. I do it all day long for years now. And it gives you this different perspective, because sometimes when you're just presenting information, like when I see Price Plow or Fitness Informant, not that they don't help people, but you're almost like detached a little bit from the customers. So you sort of lose that perspective of what it's like to go out to a store and spend $60 on a pre-workout, and you really don't understand sort of what's going on, and you just want somebody to help you. You feel kind of helpless. So I think, like, in a way, like I just sort of found my own sort of niche in there, and that's what started the idea about creating a community, because I didn't ever want it to be like the same way where I want people to, if you find Ryan's content the best way you can learn, if you find TJ or something like that, if you find them to be the one that gets to click for you, that's all that really matters to me. So sort of finding that niche where, okay, I can offer it this way, and bringing a community together was the biggest part, because then it's like, I'm not standing on a soapbox going, everyone gather around, I tell you all the answers, I can figure out your lives for you. It was like, hey, we have so and so that has gone through, we'll get questions on the group about, women struggling with menopause, or men struggling with you're going through a divorce, you're doing all these things. So there's all these life sort of things that come up, and I guess as we get a little bit older, you see more situations, and I think you just naturally, and Rob, I've kind of noticed it with you too, like why I think we agree on a lot of things. You take more responsibility about the things that you say and you put out there. Like the older you get and the more you talk to like real people all the time, rather than just talking to the people within this space. So then after all those years of like talking to all these people, I started to really get to know some of the brand owners, and I would hear like you, Rob, like I would hear your why, and I'm like, who is a good person? I'll hear someone, and I'll hear like that language they use where they go, I want something like this, and I go, who would be a good person for you to check out is Rob, or whoever it is. So I almost see myself as almost like a matchmaker kind of thing, where you're like, if I hear your situation, I've seen this enough, maybe I've experienced it, or I know somebody who is, I can sort of link those people up. And it takes a little bit of work. It takes extra work. It's not very good for the likes and clicks and that 15-second bullshit that we do, that all social media is these days. We want to say outlandish shit. That's not how life works. You know what I mean? So,
No, I understand.
Yeah, so we try to get to I want to make real progress with people, not just say, well, here's the best, pre-workout, go buy that. It's like, what does that mean? I guess it's a thing that kind of happens with experience a little bit.
No, I agree. This next question is going to be for both of you because I want to see it more as a discussion. And so Robert and I mean, and of course you, Justin, as well, all three of us, I guess, can be classified as movie buffs. We love movies and we enjoy movies. But typically, how do we choose a movie? We choose a movie based on a genre that we like, based on a trailer that we just saw, based on an actor. I mean, there are different aspects as to why we go and watch a certain movie, why we spend money and time. But nobody's telling us you must go watch this movie. I mean, a friend or something like that. But I mean, there is no a governing body or some influencer. At least I don't pay attention to nobody. Kind of, I know. But typically, you will read a review, say by professional reviewers, that critics, that film critics that review movies. So maybe you will take into account their opinion. Most of the time, those people are not getting paid. I mean, not most of the time. They definitely not getting paid. They work for themselves, or they work for maybe for a magazine or online magazine or something like that. But most of the time, they're not getting exactly bribed by movie studios or anything like that. So we know how it works. The same goes with restaurants. There's, if you want to read up a review about restaurant, you go online, or or based on a cuisine that you like. With supplements, it's a little bit different because on the one hand, again, we have, like you just said, you want to help people, and we hear a lot of people who are saying, I want to help. I want to influence people in a good way. Sometimes people lie that they're good people, and sometimes they genuinely believe they're good people, but they're actually not. And in other cases, they are actually good people. The problem is that, for example, you have people in your community. They obviously look up to you. They listen to you. They take your advice. They, for whatever reason, they trust you. So you do have a certain influence, obviously, in the industry with that group of people. But now, if you take, for example, like we said, there are different corners or different avenues in supplements. So if you take Price Plow and Fitness Informant, they promote or talk about only a handful of brands. We know that those handful of brands do pay them for the content, which is great. I mean, if you do work, you get paid. That is fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. But they promote them, they advertise for them, basically. They're telling people how great they are. They review products. So now they make advice or give advice based on the fact that they're getting paid. So they're not going to promote, say, for example, a company that is not paying them. They might squeeze one or two here and there just for the hell of it, but most of the time, if it's like heavily promoted and and hyped up, that's a company is paying for those services. So basically, the consumer is getting in a way tricked into buying products that perhaps he doesn't even need. Then you have the review channels. We know most review channels are getting a bit of a percentage or a kickback on effect on based on their reviews. They're getting 5, 10, 15%, whatever that is. They are getting a bit of a kickback, which is, again, I don't have any issues with that either. They want to get paid. The problem that I have actually with both sides, so it doesn't look like I'm attacking one and defending the other one. I actually have a problem with both sides. One side is hyping products based on the fact that they're getting paid, completely ignoring everything else, and often not saying, like, listen, this company paid us money and that's the reason why we're hyping them. But everybody already knows the drill. On the other hand, STEM junkies, they look up to, say, a review channel. I'm not going to name anyone because it's irrelevant. We know those channels. And they're going to say, oh, this fucking thing slaps. It's so strong. It gives you this and it gives you, and you're going to feel phenomenal. But you have a proprietary blend, or you have something that was made God knows where in some basement or something like that. You don't know what that product contains. The consumer is not knowledgeable enough. And he's being tricked into buying that product as well. So on both sides, the consumer, I feel, is losing in reality because he's tricked into buying something that perhaps he or she should not be buying, or maybe there is a better alternative elsewhere that he doesn't even know about, because let's face it, there are so many fucking brands. And the only one that basically talks about all the brands is Shane. I mean, Stacked is the only channel that you have thousands of brands throughout the year, not being advertised, but you being aware, okay, this company is coming with this product and it has this and that in the product. So do you see it as a problem for the industry? Again, on both sides, I'm not attacking one and defending the other one. I'm basically attacking right now both sides, because I feel that there is definitely, because one is, most of the review channels are proclaiming themselves to be like, oh, we 100% honest reviews. But let's face it, some of them are anything but honest. And then on the other hand, you have channels that promote like 5 or 6 brands out of thousands and thousands of brands, and basically indirectly pushing products onto people, because that's essentially what they do, ignoring everybody else. Do you think it's a problem for the industry? And if yes, can it be fixed, or should we just let it go?
That's right. That's a good one.
It's a tough one. I understand. And like I said,
Well,
no pressure, just your opinion.
No, there's kind of two steps. The way I always see it. One, I'm not a person that's super sympathetic towards customers these days, because
They should do research.
we have so much information. But I also do remember what that was like. I tried not to lose sight of where I started from, and I remember being that guy going, okay, great, Google it. Well, you Google it and you go, well, what the fuck? I remember reading studies and I'm going, okay, if someone could just honestly help me, like I have a couple questions kind of thing. So I am kind of hard on customers sometimes when I see them not really trying. That's all I really want from someone. I just want some kind of effort from a customer. And if you get stuck, then by all means, ask me a question. I get a little ticked off when people are just, they're like, give me the answer, just tell me the answer. And I'm like, it doesn't, kind of work that way. But I do, man, I see other people in these situations where they have to try to maneuver their way through an answer. And that's the one thing that I can't do that. I cannot do that, man. I cannot say something that I don't really, really believe in. And I think that's like one sometimes where I can come across as kind of like just, very like blunt thing, because I put a lot of thought into what I'm going to tell someone. This is about our health. I think when it comes to things that we're taking into our bodies, and people are coming to some of us on their last leg. They're not getting help from their doctors. They're not finding the answers that they can look for online. They get sucked into the content creation. I call it engagement farming. That's basically what everyone does these days. You have all these conflicting, because you have content creators that literally the only thought that they have in their head when they put something out there is, how much engagement can I get from this? Not, is it going to actually help people? Are people going to find value in this? It's how many. So a lot of times you're influenced to make content that is controversial, or because it gets more comments, it gets more shares, it gets more engagement, right? And so we're rewarding content sort of in the wrong ways, I think. So I do think it's a problem, man. I think it's a problem when I watch, I don't watch other people's content. I've told Robert this a million times. I haven't watched, even when Ben and I were sort of working together and we were friends, the last time Robert was at Price Plow was the last time I watched anything from Price Plow. Ryan, a fitness foreman, he knows this. There's nothing that his content is ever going to help me with. Maybe years ago, but there's nothing he can teach me, right? So when I see those guys have to, they'll say something and then they have to go, this, because they're kind of talk themselves into a corner. I don't want to be like that, man, because I don't think that that's fair. Taking away sympathy, because people should be able to look and sort of determine on their own, but I just think that's a tough place to be in, man. When you're trying to give people advice and help about their health, you should really not have any reservations about what you're going to say. You shouldn't feel any pressure from a company to answer a certain way. I've had clients of ours that we work with that if their product doesn't fit into what I'm talking about, I'm not going to mention it. And I've had people get pissed at me. They're like, hey, throw us a bone. And I'm like, it's not organic. It doesn't make sense for me to talk about your product, so I'm not going to do it. I don't care if you're paying me or not. If we're helping you to build your brand, whatever it is. So I just don't ever want to be in that position, man. Because I can't sleep at night if I'm not. Whether you agree with me or don't agree with me, if you think I'm an asshole, if you think I'm the most helpful person in the world, I'm going to give it to you just exactly what I really feel. And I'm not going to be pressured by anybody to say anything that I don't mean or that I don't 100% believe in. Because I see how it impacts people in their daily lives. I see the frustration. I've had so many conversations with people, man, and this too. When you have those real connections with a lot of people, you just have that responsibility. You feel it deep down. You're like, I can't let these people down just so I look good to one of these brands or one of these people and give them what they want. I just can't do it.
I think it's a fair answer. And if a consumer came to you today and asked you, Justin, listen, I want to get into fitness. I want to get into the gym thing. I want to work out. I want to use supplements, diet, and stuff like that. But I don't know shit about supplements. I don't know anything about it. I saw there is Fitness Deal News, and I saw there is Review Brothers, and I saw there is Price Plow, and there is Fitness Informant. There are so many different channels, but they all speak a different language. And I don't know who to believe. I want to get the best for my money, but at the same time, the best for my body. I don't want to spend money on junk. Yes, I try to Google stuff. Yes, I try to learn. But if I go to somebody for advice, where do I go?
Yeah. So if you want me to say somebody other than myself,
No, you can mention yourself. Let's throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
If you mention yourself, tell me why should I believe you? And if you mention somebody else, or if you also mention somebody else, then just for the hell of it, other than you, mention somebody else that you would go to. I think that would be fair.
Yeah. So for me personally, there's a couple people, and I'll sort of walk myself into how I think my niche kind of started and how I try to kind of go about things. Tim Gritzman, right? Tim and Robert and Will. Do you know Will Wallace?
Yes.
Right. So these dudes, they're fucking smart. Joey from Glaxon, those are the guys that I'll go and look and I'll watch our content. But so Tim was actually one of the ones that really inspired me to start doing the questions, which turned into a whole thing, dude. I thought I was going to get maybe one question like a week. I had like 500 followers and I had like 150 questions like the first day. And I'm like, oh, I've been doing it every day for years since. I watched Tim and Tim helped me so much. Tim Gritzman was so good. But what I would see is Tim is such a high level thinker. He's so smart that it's hard for him. It's hard for anybody that if you have a lot of knowledge about a subject, how do you, especially supplements. Supplements are complicated. They're chemicals. They're doing all this crazy stuff in your body. So it's like, how do you dumb it down without losing the integrity of what these things actually are? So that's where I tried to sort of, what I was seeing, there was a gap in the content that I would see is no one was really trying to, there was either really, really super high level people or the people that are just sort of promoting things. So I tried to find myself somewhere in the middle a little bit so that I can have the high level conversations, but that really doesn't help that many people that I've noticed, because a lot of people that are already talking about that stuff on that level or understand it, you already kind of have your mind made up. You already know a lot about this stuff. So I just honestly, man, I don't see a lot of people taking the time, because the way I do it is exhausting. You have to have conversations, these long conversations, and not make any money off of it with people all the time. So you really have to want to do it. And there's nobody that's been no one has talked to more customers and had more in-depth conversations with customers over the last few years than I have. There's no question about it to me.
I do agree with that. And Tim is absolutely amazing and knowledgeable, very approachable. And, it's just a shame because the thing is, I find that we are in an industry that has so much to offer. It really does. And it's, today you have so many ingredients and supplements, and there are so many supplement companies. There is, I think, something for everybody these days. And I think that for somebody who is a newbie or somebody who comes into an industry and wants to get knowledge, there are a lot of, as much as I don't want to call them con artists, but I believe that everybody who is deceiving, lying, or, there's nothing wrong. Like you said, you're offering service, obviously, for money because you have to make a living, which is absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with that. But there is, like you said, to be able to sleep at night, that you can make an honest living without lying to somebody. And I feel like the industry is filled with con artists. And, I just saw Ben Kane. He calls himself a leader. I just saw it. Somebody sent it to me. And clearly somebody who doesn't like Ben, and I guess the list is long, but to self-proclaim yourself a leader in the industry, based on what? Now, for example, I know better. I know he's no leader. He's not even close to being a leader. But somebody who is a newbie, Ben can talk. I'll give him that. He can talk. He can talk a lot of shit, but he can talk. And for somebody who doesn't know any better, like, for example, when Robert was with Plow, right? Robert was always this soft-spoken guy who, wasn't over the top or anything like that, but he was delivering actually valuable information, which is very, very valuable. Now you have a guy, and, I don't want to discredit him on every level because certain things I can say that people already know, and certain things I don't even want to get into it, although, sometimes he really gets on my nerves, and when I see him, I constantly want to confront him, and I think that it's time that I do confront him. So next time, Ben, when I see you, we're going to have a talk.
Wait. So not to interrupt you too much, but so the last time we did a podcast together, Rob, you said, I think you're like, next time I see Ryan, I'm going to beat him up. So now, that was a few years back, and you guys talked.
No, you know what?
So now this time,
with Ryan, with Ryan, to be honest with you, with Ryan, and no, it's a good question. With Ryan, it's a very, very, very weird relationship that we have, because every time we see each other, Ryan is super nice and super. Like, I'll give you an example. We were at Natural Body event, right? And there was Ryan, and there was Ben. As soon as Ryan saw me, he actually approached me. We had a pleasant conversation, and I even did, I think, his podcast or something. And we did agree that we disagree on few aspects. And I'll that's, I guess, if I don't like you and you don't like me, or we have a difference of opinion, or we even came to verbal confrontation, we can always discuss it. There is no need to, obviously, physical. That's ridiculous, but there is no need to for it to escalate when two adults can talk it out. And what I do respect about Ryan is the fact that he is the type of person who will approach you. He
Mhm.
will send you a text message, or he will confront you in person. He will talk about it. He will discuss it, even if you disagree. That I can respect, absolutely no problem, because to me that's how it should be done. We live in a real world where a difference of opinion, I don't think we have a difference of opinion. I think, to be honest with you, Ryan knows exactly what he's doing. He knows that what he does, he knows what
Mhm.
his channel is geared for. Ryan is a businessman. He is a businessman, and sometimes certain things that he does, they're a little bit um, I'm just gonna go say it. They're a little bit dishonest. Not even a little bit. He pushes the envelope slightly too far, and sometimes it's way too obvious. And he was caught many times, basically saying something that is not true or going back on his word.
Mhm.
I mean, he's done it with my brand, so I mean, that's a perfect example as well. With
Yeah,
Ben,
because
it's complete. Yeah, I mean, at one point he said actually Robert was the one who defended Hooligan, where he said that Hooligan is going to kill people and Hooligan is bad and
I
Hooligan is
remember.
dangerous, you know. And then as soon as I paid him, all of a sudden Hooligan is the top three pre-workout in the world, you know. So I mean, I'm willing to admit it, because the thing is that I don't agree with that, with those tactics. I
Mhm.
believe that if something is good, it's good. If something is bad, it's bad. With Ben, it's a little bit different. Ben used to work for NutriBio, and he was let go from NutriBio. And then he worked for this other company. I forgot the name.
Olympus.
Olympus Labs. I mean, he
Mhm.
didn't last long there. And you know what? When I met first Ben, Ben was very, very humble guy, very
Mhm.
kind of shy, very quiet. I mean, couldn't hurt a fly. He was just a pussycat. And then little by little, as he got with Price Plow, all of a sudden he decided he's a star. And I had zero intention, actually. With Ryan, yes, I wanted to confront him 100%. With Ben, I had zero intention. The only thing I did say it to him through text message, I said that I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I hurt Price Plow as much as I can, because it's a deceiving channel. I said it's a channel that should not exist, and what they're doing is immoral, and I think it's wrong. And if you're doing content, it's one thing, but when you're lying, that's a completely different thing. And they were caught lying many, many times, which was very, very obvious.
Mhm.
But again, I had zero intention talking to Ben. Every time he sees me, he literally goes to the other side. He moves in a different direction. He said to a friend of mine, to a mutual friend, that he's going to talk to me at the Natural Body event. Ryan did. We had actually a rather pleasant conversation, like I said.
Mhm.
Ben didn't. Ben literally ran away from me. Literally, he ran away from me. Not that I wanted to confront him. And the reason why I do actually want to confront him is because now I hear that he talks shit about my brand, which Price Plow not mentioning my brand because I don't pay them. And to them, people that don't pay them pretty much don't exist. I don't have a problem with that. Don't mention me. That's fine. Don't give me a brand of the year that somebody pays you for. That's fine too.
Well, I
But
think one of the things too. Sorry, but one of the I think what you're talking about. One of the things that I noticed, being a little bit on the outside of it, was the one thing that bothered you the most, which I think is shitty too, is if you believe something. And here's the thing, like Ryan and I kind of he's very pissed off at me as something I said to him a few months back, and we haven't really spoken since. But I still, it doesn't matter.
Details.
I, res- I
Details.
mean, yeah,
Details.
I'll tell details, but I don't want to talk about too many things at once too. But like, I'll still always give Ryan. I respect what he's done, moving away from the advertising to the Fit Butters to now he's taking control over the Fit Butters thing. Ryan and I have some scary similarities in our life, in our lives, and things like that. So even though Ryan, he's really pissed at me. but I didn't back down from what I said. I said I meant what I said. I thought you were disingenuous, and sorry, too bad. So, but I still respect totally what he's done over there. He's done some amazing things.
Yeah.
He started doing it one way, and he was like, okay, now I need to pivot because I'm running into these issues, and that's how, right? That's the best we can do, right? We all learn from our mistakes, and we take good things, and then what he's building over there is fucking incredible. I mean, it's awesome. So, but I think to get to the Ben thing, the thing that pissed you off the most, and the thing that I took notice of the most was the fact that he was, when there was an opportunity to, and he did the same thing to my partner, Prady. He would always talk shit about him until Prady wanted to advertise on their platform, and then he had him on the podcast and, you know, all this stuff. So he was talking about Hooligan, you know, him and I were like promoting, because I was promoting it anyway because I loved it, and he was doing it because it was going to mean more engagement and more money potentially for them. And then when he realized that it wasn't going to happen, then they went into a different direction, almost where they were against you, where if you would have kept going down that road, they were your best friend for a couple weeks. Because so it's like,
Absolutely.
if
That's
you
the
really
main
think
that's the
something-
main problem that I have with it, because the
Right.
thing is that, again, if you have a channel or a company that advertises for different products, that is absolutely fine. You know, like you can do that. You don't have to talk about me because I don't pay you. That's fine too. My problem is that I don't like. I mean, potentially, if you're a nice guy and I see that you're doing good job for other brands, you know, promoting them properly. I don't want you to overhype me. If you're going to say that, for example, we have Lionheart, right? Lionheart is a pre-workout that is very, very low on stims. It's a very moderate stim product, and it has no pump properties pretty much because it's mostly for endurance athletes. So if you're going to say Lionheart is the greatest pre-workout in the world, gives unbelievable pump and energy for hours nonstop, I'm like, okay, you're a little bit pushing it too far now.
Right.
You know, it's not that kind of a product. So I don't want you to overhype it. But if I see you doing a good job with other brands that are paying you, and that's fine that they paying you, I don't have a problem with that. You know, number one, stop giving fucking awards. Don't give awards, because you're giving awards to people that are paying you. That is fucking wrong. You're being biased. Or say it out loud. I'm only giving awards to those people that are paying, which I think they kind of did say that in a way, but it's still stupid because you have like what, 5 brands, 10 brands? There's thousands of brands. It's just ridiculous. Stop giving out awards. Stop talking about other brands. Stop criticizing other brands. Why? Because you criticizing somebody that potentially could be your customer. Just don't talk about them. Do your content that you're getting paid for. Explain the beauty or whatever about each product, you know, from the company, from the brand that is paying you. 100% fine. I don't have a problem with that. But when you saying how honest you are and how the product is the greatest in the world, you overhyping it. You're actually doing more than you're getting paid for. And one of the companies they were doing it for was NutriBio, who, by the way, is a phenomenal company. NutriBio is a great fucking company making great fucking products. And they were fucking, you know, on Mark Glazier's dick nonstop. All of a sudden, Mark stops fucking paying, and NutriBio ceased to exist. They just don't exist in Price Plow universe. So the greatest company that ever existed all of a sudden disappeared. No, they're still doing great. It's still a great company. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is now that they're not paying you. You going after, you talking shit about Jeff Long's product, but then you're chasing Jeff Long to pay you for content. And all of a sudden, I don't think Jeff paid anything. I'm just saying it because Jeff and I had this conversation. All of a sudden, you sucking up to Jeff so he would pay you, but he doesn't pay you, and you once again forgot about his existence. That's just not the way things should be done. And you're calling yourself a leader. A leader in what? You talk about 10 brands, only the ones that are paying you. Where are you a leader? I'm Stacked. Could be called a leader. I think that, you know, but Shane is just not that type of person, you know. You can't call yourself a leader. You can't give yourself that title. You can't be walking around like, you know what, you're the best thing that ever happened to this industry, because you're not. In fact, a lot of people dislike you for a very good reason. You have this little circle of friends that are paying you, and you are pretending to be their friends because they paying you. But as soon as they stop paying you, all of a sudden that relationship disappears. And it's the same thing like I saw with Ryan. Ryan loves Ghost. We know that Ghost works with Ryan, but all of a sudden he says, "Oh, they talked about Bang," and I think something that Ryan said, that oh no, it wasn't Ryan. I'm sorry, it was actually Ben. That basically Bang is shit and they should go away and whatnot because they should make space for Ghost. Well, everybody knows you're being biased. Everybody knows you're being biased. Don't make it so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And then because I criticize the way you work, because you were caught lying so many times, deceiving the consumer so many times, I actually invited, I don't know if you know about this, but a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I said I would work with Price Plow. I would have zero problem because let's face it, I have a brand.
Mm-hmm.
I have a brand, which means marketing is part of success. I need to pay for it. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have a problem promoting it with Price Plow. Why not? That's fine. But we need to sit down. You need to change certain things the way you do business. It's just certain things. I don't want you to give me brand of the year or anything like that. Just change certain things. Let's discuss it. And I said numerous times, even when we had the final scoop, I said, I would love Ben to come and have a discussion with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go on his platform and I'll have a discussion with him too. Obviously, he chickened out because that never happened. And then he told a mutual friend that he's going to talk to me at the Natural Body event. But again, he ran away from me. I'm not backing off from a conversation. I don't want to call it a fight, but I'm not backing off from a conversation. We can definitely have a conversation. We can discuss it. But the thing is if you know what leaders are good at? Leaders are good at setting example. So if you call yourself a leader, why don't you set an example and actually be one?
Yeah.
Be one, because guess what? If you do things right, people will follow you. You will actually get more business. More people will like you, because there are people who don't like me. There are people who don't like Ben. There are people who don't like Ryan. That's fine too.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you do good, the right people will like you. That's a fact.
Yeah, I think that one thing you and I have always had in common, whether we agree on things or disagree on things, at least the one thing we know is I know anything that you say, you mean it. You've thought about it. That's how you really feel. People might not agree with me, and that's okay. But
that's fine.
When I give an answer and I say something, I've put a lot of thought into it, and if I put it out there, that's how I feel. So I think you and I are both kind of people where if you see someone and they're saying things, and you can tell right away if they're being influenced, say, or if they really mean it or not. And I think that's one thing you and I kind of pick up on, where if you're in a position where you're there to help people, because there's things that I could do differently. Like I make this joke kind of all the time where I'm like, if I just set it up where someone could come to me and say, tell me what product to take, and I'll charge you $1, right? And I'll just give you the answer, just boom, boom, boom. It'd be a turnstile of money, right? But that's not how it works. That's not, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I'd make more money that way, because people would just kind of give it up like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, just give me the answer. But it's just not that way. So I won't ever back away from that, sort of response to that stance, because I just know it doesn't help anyone. The only people it helps are the people that are putting it out there. So I just see that if you're in a position where you're a leader, if you consider yourself a leader and things like that, which I think that's more for other people to decide if you're a leader.
Exactly. I agree.
It's not really up to you to sort of say that, but then I just think, you should take more responsibility in kind of the things that you say. So sometimes I just kind of shrug my shoulders and go, maybe at some point it sinks in,
Yeah, maybe. Now, switching gears a little bit in a different direction, just to kind of get your perspective on the industry itself and how it evolved, especially in years that you've been involved in the industry. For example, today, and we've seen this there was also a discussion about this recently. Collaborations. Everybody does collaborations. I mean, I'm not against them. In fact, I'm sort of kind of easing into it myself. I think that there is definitely, I don't think there is a need for it. I don't think that there is a certain demand for it. I think we can go just, with chocolate and vanilla. I said it many times. There is no specific need for collaborations. Do we really need Oreo, protein? No, we don't. Is it nice to have it? Yes, it is. I mean, obviously, it's something different, and I was always a big fan of something that is different. I was never, I was never a big fan of following somebody's footsteps. I was always something that, being a leader or an innovator or something like that, you take
Right.
chances and you do something that perhaps others don't. But at the same time, I actually thought that Ghost was maybe the first one to do it, but apparently it's been done years and years ago. And we saw it on Stack that it was revealed that Oreo collaboration was done by Muscle Tech fucking million years ago.
Yeah.
So, but again, it doesn't even really matter who is the first. Maybe Muscle Tech wasn't even the first. I mean, I'm not a fucking historian, so I don't know. But my point is that lately it's been everywhere. Rise and Ghost and many other companies are doing it. Um, I know that you're kind of meat and potato kind of a guy. When it comes to a pre-workout, you're not exactly very picky when it comes to flavor. You're more about performance. We know this about you. But at the same time, I know that you were one of the guys who made our peanut butter cookie protein very popular. But actually, I have to thank you for that. And again, peanut butter cookie is not a collaboration. But how do you feel about collaborations at all? I mean, do you think? No, I don't want to say do we need them because it's not about need. Do you think now it's gone a little bit too far, or do you think it's okay, or there is a balance? Just the whole trend. I would like your opinion about it.
Yeah, I think back up the thing about the Apollon protein. I think that's kind of that's an example of why, like I said, I don't know that my way is better or worse, but it's better for me to do it that way, because that way, when I come across something that I really love, right? If I were out there every day posting about how much I love this, and then I love Ghost's next one, and I love Glaxon's next one, and then I love, everyone's next one is the next greatest thing, right? Your word deteriorates, it dilutes itself. What are you saving your enthusiasm for? So I know that when I say, look, this Apollon protein, because I was pushing back against the isolate thing. I was like, first of all, this isolate
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was like, I don't know where this came from. I was like, but it's bullshit. I was like, so
yeah, that's true. That's 100% true. I can attest to it.
And I was like, this protein is awesome, and people know that if I stick my neck and I go, look, this is legit, then I know people will buy it, and that it makes me feel good that I don't have to defend myself when I make a recommendation or I say, this is something I really love. People don't go, oh, well, is he saying it because he's friends with Rob, or is because of this and that? People don't do that, and I see other people have to go through that. They have to defend themselves,
and I'll tell you what, and this is the reason, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the reason why people actually believe you, this is, and I caught that, this is exactly what I said about Price Plow and Fitness Informant, because while they're very one-dimensional, they're recommending pretty much down the same path, the same kind of type of products, you're all over the place. You might recommend something today on this side, and then tomorrow, if you like something, I know you're completely unpredictable, and I've seen you recommending things that I would not expect you to recommend, or maybe recommend is a strong word, but basically backing it up and saying that it's a good product. And I think that's the reason that people, maybe your followers, people do believe you, because they know, oh, look, Glaxon, Justin likes Glaxon, so everything made by Glaxon, Justin's gonna like. But at the same time, I didn't see you hyping up or promoting, or what's the better word for it, all Glaxon products. I know you pick certain products that you actually like, but I've seen you on a complete, opposite side, saying positive things about things that are the opposite of Glaxon. And I think I like that. I like that because then that tells me, you know what? Okay, it's the same thing going back to movies. You can praise a drama, but you can also praise a comedy. You're not
No, that's a
one
good analogy.
dimensional. You're not
Yeah.
not one dimensional and just like one trick pony. Sorry, you were saying.
No, no, I think that that's really important because, there is a piece to the supplement aspect of there's so many great brands and there's so many great products, and the differences in them are becoming smaller and smaller. So there is an aspect of people being excited to buy from a company. People see your stuff coming out, they get excited, right? They're like, fuck yeah, the branding, and there is a part of that. Anytime you need motivation to go to the gym or to say go on a weight loss journey or stuff like that, you need to feel good about it, man. And I always tell people this. I'm like, yes, Ghost Energy might be my favorite personal energy drink, right? But if you get excited, if the way you get excited about doing things is to take this one or to do this, and that gets you going, fuck, that's all that really ultimately matters. The only thing I want people to know is I don't want you to get stuck in a bubble of, oh, there's only 5 brands out there, the ones that are heavily advertised the most. The when we got stuck in the Redcon thing and all this other things, people only see what's right in front of them, the advertisements. I just want you to know what else is out there. And then when we sort of stack them up all side by side, maybe try a few. It's just like going to the gym when people say, what are the 3 best exercises to build your chest? It's like, well, part of it is what exercise do you just love to do, and you find yourself being able to push through that, sometimes better. So it's that's part of the whole thing too, where you're like, you don't want to get too pigeonholed with, certain ingredients or certain products, things like that. There is a human aspect to this whole thing where people, need to feel good about what they're doing. But to go to the collaboration thing, I think there was, because Ghost was really, I think you're right there, putting it on the map. But I think part of it is too, it felt right with Ghost, because Ghost is a very, that was one thing, when we started doing like the Supplement Industry Roundtable podcast, that was there was 2 moments that really stood out for me. One was John Meadows. I think about that conversation we had with John Meadows, honestly, man, every fucking day. It was like one of the most powerful interviews I've ever had. His why, being on the other side of computer screen, feeling his why, just like you could feel it, dude, come through the screen and like into you, like it had an effect on you. And then also when we sat down with Dan, because I didn't know Dan at the time. I knew of Ghost, I knew that, to Ben's credit, Ben got Dan to come on the podcast. We got to try the energy drinks, the first people to get to try it, so it was a big hype event. But in the middle of the conversation with Dan, I just noticed so many like things about Dan and the type of person he was that sort of, you wouldn't know that from, say watching their social media or seeing their hype videos or their YouTube stuff. It was really a kind of a personal connection that I saw with Dan. And right from that moment right there, it's kind of like, when you and I talked before and you tell me the things about that you're passionate about, it just adds another layer of, hey, these people, whether you agree with them or you like their products or not, but their why is so strong, like coming through. It's not just about making money necessarily. We all want to make money. It's a part of the deal. But when you feel that why come through so strongly, I always talk to you about, your travels and going to Ukraine and everything that you're doing. It just adds an extra element to it. So with Ghost and the collabs, I think it was very on brand. Maybe that term is played out a little bit, but it felt right because they're a fun brand. They're in GNC. They use and they make, their products are solid. They've come out with some really good ones, especially lately. And, Dan's a huge sup nerd. If you really get to talk to Dan, he's very into the science and things like that. And then you started to see, I think, some companies start in on collabs that you're like, well, are we just, what does that have to do with your brand? Does it really kind of fit in? But then like Core, they just sent me one recently that I loved. They did their pudding.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
and they did the Moose Tracks one. Oh man, they crushed on that one. I mean, crushed, pun intended. So we do still see some really cool collabs, and I think it's fun if it lands. You know, part of it is hearing the brand's why. You know, behind what they do. I think that's a big thing that we go through these days with everyone being so accessible. Like what you were just talking about, you wouldn't do a collab just to do a collab. It would have to make sense with, you know, the rest of your company. So it gets very subjective. I think if still done right, quote unquote, it can crush, man. It's so fun. It's really cool too to see some, you know, like I'll give you an example. My dad came to visit for really like the first time. He came down here and hung out, and he was going through my protein. He's like, Ghost did an Oreo collab? And I said, yeah. I said, it's an official. And he was like, damn, that's pretty fucking cool. So my dad doesn't know anything about, you know, this whole industry and everything like that. But it's a way to sort of bring some legitimacy to, frankly, a industry that kind of shoots itself in the foot when it comes to, you know, legitimacy. So it does help for sure, like the perception.
I think that was, to be honest with you, that was one of my favorite answers that I've had doing this podcast for the past 9 episodes. That was a brilliant answer, because I could have said it better. I think that you know, there are a few people who thought that I hate collaborations, and you know, actually, this is a good opportunity to clarify it. I don't. What I hate, and the hate is a strong word, but it is hate, because dislike would be a little bit too mellow. I never liked followers, never. I like people that are leaders, and I like people that are innovators. And if you're gonna do something and it's very cool, I can copy you, but I don't think that it's, you know, I basically, I'm profiting off of your idea. You know, there is nothing you can do to me about it, because, you know, there's no way you can stop me. But the bottom line is that the consumer always knows. They know, oh, look, Rob just fucking ripped off Justin. They will know. So I think that what you know, there are certain things I'll admit that I disagree with Dan, how he does things. I think a little bit too much when it comes to Price Plow and Fitness Informant, and a little
Yeah, I
bit
don't know
too.
why.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too obvious, and I actually said it to him on the final scoop. I remember saying it to him. He didn't argue with me or anything like that, but I said to him, Ghost is an established brand. It's a brand that doesn't need nobody, literally doesn't need nobody, and there is a good reason for it. It's a good brand. It's not just an established brand, because there are established brands that are crap, but this is an established brand that is good formulations, incredible marketing. You know, I like their labels, I like their formulas, I like their flavors. I mean, the energy drinks are also among my favorites. I wouldn't say that they my favorite brand when it comes to energy drinks. I mean, probably still goes to Monster in a way, but in terms of how they came in the last year, guns blazing, releasing so many flavors. I even remember saying it to Shane. Green sour apple is not really my kind of a flavor, but they green sour apple is the best apple I have ever had. They fucking nailed it. That's one of those drinks flavors that whether you like it or not is irrelevant. But when I give it to you to try, you will say, this is on the money. This is spot on. And for that, I give them all credit in the world. Again, I have no idea why they continue to do so much with Price Plow and Fitness Informant, because it's completely unnecessary. And in my book, in the way I see it, and not just me, people I talk to, they don't look at it very favorably anymore, because there is no need for it, because it's very obvious that both Ryan and Price Plow are hyping it up a little bit too much, and it's way too obvious that they're not doing it because it's that good. They're doing it because they get paid that good. You know, there is a difference. So that's the aspect that I kind of disagree on certain level, and I think Dan tends to pick on certain brands a little bit too much. You know, sometimes you'll go, oh, these guys did this wrong, and they done this wrong. I think it's unnecessary. You know, unless you asked, or, you know, or you have a podcast where you can actually talk about, you know, products, or you have some kind of a channel, or you do something that has to do with reviewing products, then maybe you can pick on certain things. Although it's very difficult because even for me to kind of specifically talk about a brand and say certain things, sometimes it feels a little bit off. I still do it, I admit, but sometimes it feels a little bit off. Um, I think that his focus should be mostly on Ghost because they done a phenomenal job. I mean, Ghost really, if I could pick one of the brands that's been very, very influential and very, very, that made a huge mark on the industry, hands down, Ghost comes to mind as probably maybe number one, quite possibly number one, and rightfully so. But where I'm
That's
going with this, what's
yeah.
that?
No, that's a huge point. Like what you just brought up there too is
But I see, Dan says it sometimes, and I think when it comes from Dan, it doesn't look very good. But when it comes, although it
yeah. I
does,
know
in a
what you
way,
mean.
he's protecting his brand. But a lot of other brands are copying him. They copying Ghost, and it looks pathetic. It just looks kind of funny because you can still do collaborations, but you don't have to make it so obvious that you're trying to do what Ghost is doing. When it comes to collaborations, you can collaborate with so many different companies and from different industries. You can do it your own way, like you said, something that fits your brand. You don't have to rip off Ghost because Ghost is Ghost. Ghost is very, very unique brand, and they do things their own way. They're not trying to rip off anyone, as far as I know, because they kind of like Glaxon. They very, very innovative with the marketing, with the labels and everything else, and that's unnecessary. Everybody should stick to their game. Like, for example, if Apollon needs to do collaboration, and we're doing actually few this year, but it's not gonna be like trying to be like Ghost. This not gonna be. This is gonna be trying to be like us, because it's one of those things when we had, and I said it before, when we had 600 milligram of caffeine in Hooligan years ago, and people like Ryan were screaming, "Oh, they're trying to kill people, and this is so bad, and this is horrible." You know what I did the following year? I released a Hooligan version that was 700 milligram of caffeine, because nobody's going to tell me how to run my brand. I have my own vision, I have my own team, and we do things our way. I mean, and just like Ghost, maybe to a smaller extent, I see people ripping us off. They copying us, and I see it quite a bit when it comes to formulations. I see it when it comes to the look, when it comes to stim junkie product that looks suspiciously like a palm. It's pathetic. You should find your own way of doing it. So I think
Yeah.
collaborations are great. I think they're phenomenal if done right and done that fits your own brand. And I think that with Not a Butter and Oreo and Chips Ahoy, it's kind of the same, but at the same time different. But it fits goes so well. I think it fits them perfectly well, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why they're having so much success. And that's a brand, that you can bet your ass is going to be successful a year from now, 2 years, 3 years from now. Why? Because for the past, I think they've been around for what, 6, 7 years. They've been sticking to their own idea, to their own formula, and I think they achieved something spectacular in that. But companies that I see that are trying to be like Ghost, they're still not reaching even a quarter of success that Ghost has achieved, and they won't, because they have absolutely no identity. They have no brand identity.
Yeah, I think that that's one thing. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Is you and I probably just through life experiences and then experiences through this industry, instantly when something someone says or they do is just not authentic. It like it's like a flashing like red light when something comes out of their mouth and you're like your radar goes off right instantly. And I think that's like one thing with you guys is you know you've never changed, not that you haven't evolved as a brand, but you've never changed your what's at the heart of your company in order to get to the next level. Because what we've seen a lot of times in the past is like you'll have brands, and when they want to scale up to the next level they have to sacrifice something, and it's usually ingredients, it's usually dosages, it's something beneficial for the customer because they have to move that money somewhere else into marketing or margin to pay international distributors or something like that. So where the costs are always cut are what actually ends up in the consumer's hands normally when we see that scale up version. Whereas like, you guys have grown quite a bit. I don't know your financials, but it's obvious what's gone on. But there's never been a where Apollon launches this product and everybody goes, oh man, there it is. There's their moment where they're like, okay, we're going to try to, kind of change things up a little bit. You still stick with what got you here. You're just going to try to do everything else better. You're not going to cut what ultimately goes to the consumer, right? You're going to try to be better digitally. You're going to try to be better running ads. You're going to try to be better manufacturing wise, supply chain. Like, you're going to focus on those ways in order to scale up. You're not going to cut $5 worth of formula out so you can distribute it in a bigger way. So I think that stuff people know, man. I mean, people, like you mentioned too, like with Ghost, I would say that even with Ghost, probably the formulas I've loved the most from them are the ones that have come out in the last year or two. If anything, they've probably upped their game when it comes to formulas and stuff like that. And the same with you guys. Like, you're everywhere now. I can't keep up with you guys. It's freaking impossible.
Yeah, but you know what interesting is, and again, I have to thank you for this, because sometimes you do my battles, quote unquote, better for me than I do. And one of them was somebody asked you about one of our health products. That was a while ago. And you said something like, look, where it's from. I mean, again, I'm not trying to say it word for word because I don't remember exactly how you said it, but the idea was basically that they do the health line exactly as they do the other products, fully dosed, and you know what to expect, like fully packed, fully loaded and stuff like that. And I never looked at it from that perspective, even though it's true. But, we doing health is exactly the same style as if we would do Assassin or Hooligan. There's nothing different, just the ingredients, and, obviously for what the product is intended. But at the same time, you just mentioned Core, and they did the collaboration that you just talked about. But it was so much different from Ghost. It's completely different. It's a collaboration, but you have that feel that it's not a copy. It's not trying to be like somebody else. They kind of did it in their own way. And I think that's what makes it so special. And, I haven't tried the product, but I heard only good things about it. So I think that's the key element of a successful brand, sticking to what made them successful, if they are. I think that's the only way.
Yeah, because what was cool about that product too is it's the perfect product. It's not just a flavor, right, that you sort of throw out there, the Moose Tracks thing. It's their pudding product, which is meant to be sort of a end of the evening kind of snack for people to, fill yourself up without it being ice cream, right? Because that's where, you're sitting on the couch watching whatever, people grab some ice cream. So they make an alternative to sitting down, which is their pudding product. It's that nice thick casein sort of blend. And then they put the Moose Tracks flavor collaboration in with something that's already meant to sort of take the place of someone out there struggling, with a sweet tooth at night, or, packing on too many calories, right before they go to bed. And so it really just, as collaborations have sort of gotten a little exhausting, I didn't even know they were doing that one. And it showed up on my doorstep the one day, and I opened it up. I was like, okay, there's still definitely a market for collaborations when done, when it makes sense, I think.
And speaking also of other good companies, because I want to give them an honorable mention. I mean, I obviously mentioned NutraBio, who I still feel like they sticking to their own way of doing things, just like they were doing it years ago. Yeah. I know you're friends with Jeff Long, like a pro. I mean, on one hand, I feel like we have similarities, but on the other hand, he's so much different. I mean, the brand is different from Apollon, but Jeff sticks to his formulas. He sticks to his guns. He sticks to his beliefs. And I think, and he's very passionate, and I respect that. I respect Jeff and I had our different opinions and different views and different approaches, and we not always saw eye to eye. But to be honest with you, I have utmost respect for him just because he does things his way, basically just like me, goes, fuck you to the industry. I'm going to do it my way. And he has his loyal followers. I actually want to have him on a podcast as well. And he has, and he just does, he's unapologetic about how he does things. If you don't like his products, he will tell you, go fuck yourself and, use something else. But he sticks to his formula because his brand is successful after all. And he sticks to it, and I respect that tremendously. Same goes for Ben from Morphogen. He sticks to his way of doing things, and obviously Michael with Glaxon, they have their own kind of like a look presentation, and I think that these are the brands that I respect so much. I mean, obviously there are more brands. Core comes to mind as well. I like brands that stick to their guns and they're not trying to copy it. And each and every brand that I just described is a successful brand in its own way. And I think that that's very, very cool. And they're going to continue to succeed because of the way they do things.
Yeah.
Can I interject really quick, Robbie?
Yeah, sure.
On a couple of points. So, regarding the collaborations, do you think the supplement industry in general is past the era of collaborations being noteworthy? For you and Justin to ask. Because Glaxon, as y'all mentioned, they do things their own way. They recently did a collaboration with Pink Lady apples, which are one of my favorite apples around.
Well,
so it's sweet, a little tart, and Glaxon does things their own way. They always do something different.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was because Rob, because I talk to Michael all the time, and it was very. I saw it kind of ties in with what we were just talking about with the moose tracks, where you can tell Michael has been talking about collaborations for years to me. And he's like, because they get offers all the time. The people, it's because it's become such a big thing in here. You have all these offers. People are like, okay, do this and do that. And I remember Michael saying, he's like, I'm not going to do it until we feel we can do something that is really cool and also a little bit different. So they did the Pink Lady with their Super Greens product, which for, as much as Glaxon has been known, for their performance supplements and doing really cool science, things, their Super Greens product is a juggernaut of a product, and people love that thing. And they took a unique twist on the greens product. So then they said that's where we're going to put and just like the core, the moose tracks, Robert, as we were talking about before you jump back on, core taking moose tracks and sort of putting it in their ice cream style product makes perfect sense. And then Glaxon taking the Pink Lady and putting it in their Super Greens, and it tastes freaking phenomenal. It makes perfect sense. But then we see, obviously, like if you're going to do, I really think that if a company comes out with a collaboration now that doesn't make sense, they're going to get crushed because people are going to be all over them.
And again, rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. We've been hearing about collaboration. For me personally, for the brand, I believe, if Apollon collaborates with another brand, which we're going to do actually later this year, I think that's pretty cool. If you collaborate on the flavor, I actually, speaking of that, I'm pretty sure that today we kind of got to that place. It actually happened today. And if we do announce it, I'm not going to say that everybody's going to be shocked or anything like that. I'm not going to use big words or anything like that. But it's actually going to fit us, and it's going to be something that we wanted to do, and rather than anything else. And that's the reason why, like I said, I think the way Core did it was better than most others because they did it in their own way and something that makes sense and something that you're not going to go, oh, look, they're copying Ghost, because it's not the case. And again, Ghost was not the first brand to do collaborations, so that goes out of the window. The only thing is that Ghost did it in such a spectacular fashion with such huge impact. I'm maybe saying impact on the industry is going to be a little bit too much because it's not like they revolutionized the industry, but they brought something that was, I'm trying to use the word that not needed, but was very much welcomed. It was very much welcomed and appreciated and respected. I think those are better terms for it. And I think that, when people ask me, do you think there is place for collaborations in the supplement industry? Is there a place? I mean, I'm going to answer in a different way. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with it? If you can get away with peanut butter cookie because flavor is flavor after all, and it tastes good for you, by all means use it. If somebody did a collaboration with your favorite ice cream or a cookie or some shit like that or a candy, and you're dieting hard and you're craving something sweet and nice, and your protein powder reminds you of that, then it's a win-win situation. I don't see anything wrong with it, and the consumer always has a choice.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an obsession, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it on the surface, but there's an obsession kind of in this space to, well, I'm the first one to do this, and everyone is like ripping off every industry on the planet, technology, everything that we're using, right? It's been an idea that has been improved upon, right? That's how we continue to innovate, right? Being first, it's not irrelevant, but because I remember there was like pushback on some of Glaxon's like earlier products, and people are like, oh, so and so did that 15 years ago, but I'm like, who fucking cares?
Doesn't matter.
Who cares?
It doesn't matter.
They also weren't able to bring it to market and get it in people's hands and bridge that gap, the way Glaxon. So who cares if they're first or not? If they improved upon an existing idea, every other space, every industry, that's what we constantly want. We want our iPhones upgraded. We want the next level TV. We want everything to keep getting better.
But here's the thing. Okay. It has to be done right. And you know what? I'm gonna give myself a shameless plug again, but it's gonna come courtesy of you, actually, Justin. Something again I remembered. So we were, I don't want to say the first ones because again it's irrelevant, but we probably were. I remember Shane saying that there was no hardcore premium brand that actually succeeded. So I think he gave me kind of a sort of a compliment that Apollon was one, if not the first one to actually, do it. But, when it comes to, say, for example, hardcore pre-workouts, I mean, of course, there was the original, Jack 3D, and you had the 1MR from BPI. So you had a couple of those DMA products. I mean, we had DMA Assassin, stuff like that. But something that you said about Apollon, and again, I actually used it to promote us, so I kind of indirectly used you. But again, because you phrased it better than I did, far better. And so I see today, just like with Ghost, I see people trying to rip off Ghost. I see people trying to rip off Apollon with assassin types of products or hooligan types of products, and I see it a lot. I mean, I'm sure you see it a lot too. But the fixation was, and the first one to defend it was actually Robert, when we defended the whole high caffeine amount, that it's bullshit, that 600 is dangerous or whatnot. He calmed everybody down with basically proof. But where you went actually a step further was, every time people would talk about hooligan and assassin, it was stims. They were so, influenced, I guess, even though the product is obviously successful, but they were so influenced, certain groups of people were so influenced by the likes of Ryan, who talks so much shit about hooligan and assassin, that they were like, you would only put a little post about hooligan or assassin and you would see those dumbasses, this is going to kill you, this is unnecessary, this is vasoconstrictive, this is this and this is that, and it was always caffeine nonstop, until I remember you came on and you did, I think, one of your stories or something like that, and you're like, guys, you're missing the point. Caffeine is only one of the many ingredients that work very well synergetically in this product. That is actually a cool formula that covers pump and this and that, and you emphasize that. But today I see the copycats doing exactly what Ryan and those, wannabes and experts were saying, and they were right about the products that are released today. They're nothing but stims. Just stims that done in a weird way, where you see citrulline underdosed or tyrosine underdosed or this ingredient underdosed. Nobody pays attention to it. All they're saying, like, oh, this one slaps. Okay, I'm going to give you a triple espresso. Trust me, you'll feel it. You'll definitely feel it. So I think that this is where all copying other brands kind of went too far, because they don't really copy. Uh, they trying to like, oh, you have 600 milligram of caffeine. I'm gonna have 1,000. You know what? I'm gonna have more. Oh, citrulline is expensive. Oh, okay, alpha GPC is expensive, and this ingredient is expensive. I don't really need those ingredients. I need just something that's gonna kick ass. So let me just put shitload of stims in it, and everything else doesn't matter. Just because I want it to be more powerful than a Apollon product, and the same thing goes with Ghost. They're trying to rip off Ghost, and I mean, let's be honest. Before Ghost came out with collaborations, and before Ghost came out with energy drinks and started kicking ass, we didn't see the spike in collaborations and energy drinks the way we see today. And let's be honest, I'm not going to say everyone, but vast majority of brands that are releasing energy drinks don't even come close to Ghost. They don't. Ghost still, I would say, in this space, in a bodybuilding, fitness kind of a world, supplement industry, Ghost still dominates. We're not talking about mainstream like Monster and Red Bull and all. I'm talking about the supplement industry. Among those, Ghost still dominates. And again, I think well deserved.
Yeah, it's been kind of. I would even go so far as to guess that their success on the energy drink side is probably even bigger than they ever saw happening.
I wouldn't be surprised.
This quickly. And also, one thing that people forget is when Ghost first launched their energy drinks, they had a lot of issues. So they had to reformulate the entire thing because there was some B vitamins and there was like thiamine, and it was people didn't like how it smelled, and it was giving it like this weird taste. So when they launched, it actually, I don't want to say like, I mean, because we've all been there where your first iteration of your product.
Yeah, I remember there was some criticism, yes.
So yeah, they had to kind of pivot really quickly. So it wasn't like they just hit the ground and it was.
But they listened. They listened to the consumer. Yeah. They listened to the criticism.
They quickly turned it right around. They fixed it, and they really haven't looked back since. And like I said, they probably have grown faster than they could have even imagined. And like what you were talking about too, which was super important, is people still only get fixated on the caffeine content.
Exactly.
And it's like, when you look at a product like, Youngblood, I use Youngblood all the time. I love that product. It's so like perfect for me, like the way it works for me. You look, there's the caffeine, but then people are like, I had this question the other day. Someone was like, when people want a non-stim nootropic, why don't you recommend Chemix? I'm like, because it's not fucking non-stim. I'm like, it's caffeine free. I was like, there's tons of stimulants in that thing. There's every PEA known to man and all this sort of stuff. I was like, it's not non-stim. So it's like, but I had someone bring that up.
But here's you educating.
And then they were like, oh, well, I mean, it's very, very low stim. I was like, no, it's not.
No.
I was like, you ever take it? It lights you up. I was like, it's not. So there's the whole stimulant aspect of the thing where people will criticize Hooligan for 600 caffeine, but you'll take a 300 milligram caffeine product that has 200 DMHA. And Robert can back me up on this. As much as people have used DMHA and all that, we don't know shit about it. Like as far as how actually strong.
Or they're gonna have 2 or 3 cans of energy drink one after another one.
Yeah, it's like they don't do studies the way there's tons and tons of literature on caffeine about safety. There's none on DMHA, so we don't know. 50 milligrams of DMHA could be like comparable to 5 grams of caffeine. We just don't know. So it's like people get hung up on the wrong things sometimes. I'm just like.
I don't identify as a thought leader, so I'm not sure if I'm qualified to speak on the properties of DMHA.
I have been using some of your stuff lately, Robert. I showed you. So you're a thought leader to me, man. So that was my thing. I was like, usually because I remember Robert and I did a podcast together, and it was, I think the guy from Innova Farm, he he said, "Oh, I'm listening to two of my favorite thought leaders in this space," and it was a podcast with Robert and I. And I'm like, if someone else wants to call me a thought leader,
Yeah, but that's
cool.
fine. That's fine. I
I'm
mean,
not gonna
if
call
somebody
myself
else,
that.
that's more than fine. I mean, it's then it's flattering and it's a compliment,
Yes.
and well deserved. But you have to earn that, right? And somebody like the owner of Inoa Farm, Chris, who is incredible mind. I mean, he's one of the. That's another brand that actually I need to apologize to Chris. I should mention him because Inoa Farm is a phenomenal brand,
Yeah, they're awesome.
absolutely phenomenal. And Chris is one of the smartest guys. Actually, he was the first guy to help me in this industry. So, if somebody like him praises you, Robert, that's a high compliment, and that is something not to be taken lightly.
So that'll lead me into a story I wanted to tell. This is a complimentary story towards Robert, and we'll throw in a little price plow juice at the same time. This is a good story to talk about. So, Ben, when we were doing the supplement industry roundtable, and this is where, you get to a point where it's people, you don't bother explaining some things to some people because you know that it's just not gonna, it'd be like just screaming into the Grand Canyon, right? So, complimenting Robert on what a real influencer in the space is. So Robert is an actual influencer in the space, and I can prove it. So
That word makes me want to vomit.
yeah. So you have actual pull in the space, and the way the story played out. So Ben, not to go into too many details about Supplement Industry Roundtable and why it sort of fell off, we stopped doing it. But there was just Ben's got a thing, a little insecure. He was very jealous of Jacob, I think, and Jacob's very young, very successful, driven, and there would be a lot of backhanded compliments that would come from him from an insecurity kind of place, kind of trying to, So Ben was telling me a story that Mike from Price Plow said, "Hey, Justin and Robert's podcast is really great. The Supplement Engineer podcast." He said, "I really, really enjoy watching that." And Ben's telling me this, okay? And then Ben says, so I said, well, it only gets like 150 or 200 views. So it was a way to sort of like take our accomplishment down a notch. So I'm listening to this. I'm like, I don't know why you're telling me this fucking story anyway. But the funniest thing about that is when you say we did some supplement industry roundtable ones, some of the Glaxon ones, the Ghost one, we had like 10,000 views, which is pretty decent for the supplement space, right? Not one penny have I ever made in any indirect or direct way from the Supplement Industry Roundtable podcast. It was all for fun stuff, right? But we had a lot of views, relatively speaking. Constantly, we would have people, and I mean, Robert works full time in this space, we had people come to us all the time, Brady and I, and they would be like, ask for our help consulting wise and stuff like that. And we would ask them where you saw it, and I saw you and Robert on the Supplement Engineer podcast. So Robert we would have 100, 200 views or whatever. It was extremely lucrative because the right people are watching
Exactly.
Robert
Exactly.
for what our goals are. Robert, you're trying to make money, trying to make a living. We're working, stuff like that. It's not necessarily like just for. There's a difference between having people following along with what you're doing and actually being invested in what you're doing and actually putting skin in the game, or are they just watching you sort of while you're, while they're doing cardio and it's just to give some background noise and stuff like that. So that was one thing. I remember Brady actually brought that up to me. He's like, Robert is an actual influence in the space because even with lower numbers of people watching, whatever, he's like,
it doesn't matter.
It just turns out it's the right people sort of following along. So I've always tried to keep that in mind. You have people that they want tons. I hate the word follower to begin with. It's fucking creepy. But
Agreed.
You have people that want those numbers, but they make nothing off of it. There's no substance there. People are just following along because everybody else is, kind of thing. So then you have people, you might have a smaller dedicated following, or you have these people that have hundreds of thousands of followers but don't really buy their product. So anyway,
it doesn't work like that. You know what? Very, very similar. when I think I was 18 or 19, I was working in South Africa. I was working part time for this door to door kind of like sales marketing. We were selling oil paintings, right? And we would go to a very rich area, like with a lot of houses, like busy streets, and we would go door to door offering oil paintings. And sometimes you would find like one or two houses that would purchase something from you, but you would fucking walk for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that's it. There was one day that we ended up in this kind of like a village or something like that, and there was one house, just one house, and it was like far off the road. And the driver, who was the owner of the company, was like, "Oh, and we were trying. I was like, why don't we stop by there?" And he goes like, "Oh, it's a small house in the middle of nowhere. What's the point?" I convinced him to stop. I said like, "Listen, we're already passing it by." We went in there, and I was working on commission. I made enough money from that house to last me a whole year.
Nice.
Because the guy was apparently this farmer who was a multimillionaire. He loved paintings. He bought from us shitload of paintings, and then he called us to come back because he was doing some kind of a party, and he wanted for each guest as a gift. So just one house versus shitload of houses, I made enough money to last me for a year. And so you can't like it's not about quantity; it's about quality. Who's watching you and who you can influence. So yeah, I mean, I completely disagree with that. And plus, you don't want. I mean, we're not doing it at this. I mean, we just a bunch of guys hanging out, talking shit, talking about the industry, and that's it. We all have something that we do outside. That are real jobs. So
Right.
this is not something that we're not influencers, or at least consider ourselves influencers. You're doing it for fun. I mean, this is our ninth episode doing this, and we get 150, 200 views. I think the one with Lee Priest did like 400 views or something like that. So overall, of course, I pay attention to it. If there is one person who's willing to listen to us, then it's a one-one situation already.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then instead of bullshitting through text messages or maybe on a phone call, so we just bullshit like this, and that's fine. And if somebody gets to see us, or maybe even get something positive from this, so be it, and it's good enough for me.
I think that comes with the experience of you've probably had this several times in your life, and I've had this several times in my life. At this point, where that one just it's like one person, one interaction, one moment changes the trajectory
Absolutely.
of your life. Because I remember, so when I first started, just quick story, when I launched the original version of the app, what I would do on Instagram is just show screenshots of the app, and then I would talk about certain products. So my thinking was, I should break down products of these big companies, the Redcons and Blackstone, at the time, and these very like hyper popular brands, to get exposure for myself, right? The What I ended up doing was I took one product of it ended up being Prady's nootropic product, right? Which, as it, I didn't know what they were. I didn't know anything like that. So I broke down his product, and me breaking down his product changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, he's become one of my best friends, my business partner, and all these things. It's just like you just keep showing up and you do things.
You never know where the opportunity is going to strike. You never
and,
know.
and when you
I
see,
have a personal policy. If somebody wants to talk to me, I talk to him.
yeah,
Robert, obviously the bourbon is working because he's doing good.
No, I'm trying to figure out that along the lines of our previous talking points. What the fuck?
Well, those are
well,
the leaders.
I'll
Those are the
just
leaders.
I'll
And
just say
exactly.
that I'll just say that if that's your thing and not your thing, I'll just say that's not my thing. So I don't want to have to be in a position to do that. That's all I'll say. I will say I don't have anything negative to
It
say about
seems
Mike.
like we cannot get away from talking shit.
Yeah,
So you know what? Let's take
Mike.
it up a notch.
Mike's always been a nice guy to me. I don't have anything. I just don't have enough interactions with Mike. He's like I try not to say too much unless I get to know someone. I try anyway.
Try, yeah.
Agreed.
So I'm
And
gonna.
I am eternally grateful to Mike at Price Plow and Tommy at supplementreviews.com for ushering in my entry into the supplement industry away from oil and gas, mechanical engineering.
Life-changing, yeah.
It was great. It was phenomenal for the 3 years that it worked.
Mhm.
Since then, you know,
No,
Well,
we
you
don't.
see,
We
the
no,
thing
no,
is, things
we
change,
don't know. Go
people
ahead.
change.
Go ahead. We don't know. Go ahead. Finish that thought.
I think what Robert is trying to say
Hmm.
is that Price Plow was good when he was with them, but now he's trying to be humble, and I'm going to say it for him, they shit, for obvious reasons, and one of them being that Robert is no longer with them because we don't get as much knowledge, but we get knowledge from the supplement engineer now. Um, and staying on that course, Justin. Obviously we cannot get away from talking shit. So,
Uh-oh.
now that we're getting close to 2 hours, I have to, because otherwise nobody's gonna forgive me if I'm gonna be too nice. And I had my moments throughout the talk, but a few weeks ago I had a conversation with Jeff Long. And in a conversation, it came up basically where he said, or maybe a few months ago actually, where he said that how much he dislikes a lot of people within the industry. And, obviously one of the negative aspects was Ben Kane, because without him, it's just not doable. But he said how much he likes you.
whoa, wait.
Jeff is, yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interject.
Go ahead.
One more other. Jeff hyped a Behemoth 60 pre-workout 4 to 6 months ago. Recently on Stacked, it's just called Behemoth now. A very, very big griping point that I discussed with Sandy was, who the hell is going to benefit from a 60-gram pre-workout supplement? The average individual, even the bro-tastic bodybuilders out there, they dry scoop something, slug a little bit of water, go listen to the Fuad Abiyad podcast, the Bro Science podcast. They dry scoop something and go on there. You take a 60-gram pre-workout scoop with a little bit of water, it's going to sit in your stomach for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. And if not, in the perfect world, you'll take enough water to make sure it digests. You're still going to shit it out because there is so much actives in there and other osmolytes. It's going to sit in your intestines. You're going to shit it out within 30 to 60, 90 minutes of doing that. So he released another one, a new Behemoth pre-workout. I've never met Jeff. These mega dose pre-workout supplements, I don't understand it at all. It's not viable for companies like you, Robbie, that make giant or efficaciously dosed pre-workouts. It's not viable for Jeff, and it seems like we're getting into a dick measuring contest where I'm going to use 10 grams of citrulline, I'm going to use 12, I'm going to use 15.
Well,
Read the research. It's a 10-gram scoop at max. Outside of that, your body is metabolizing it, converting it, excreting it into something else that's not behooving your pre-workout or performance.
So here's what I love about Jeff and why. And actually, I just reminded Jeff of this the other day. Jeff and I have become good friends. I appreciate how he does things, even if it's something that I'm like, all right, Jeff, come on. I mentioned how it was years ago I did a post about his entire brand because I thought, me coming into this space, not knowing things, what I saw was bodybuilders back in the day would take advantage of the fact that they were well known and they were attaching their names to shit. And then I remember coming across, I don't know anything about bodybuilding. I'm not into that or whatever. So I see Jeff and I see his following and stuff, and then I see his supplements. And I mean, admittedly, I'm like, oh, great. Another bodybuilder brand, garbage, right? And I start to look at his products. I'm like, holy shit, these are legit. And I started to read and I started to see all of dude would literally post his workouts every day, every meal he was doing for free online. And then Jeff is very much like, I am going to do things my way. And he would, if you were talking to him right now, this is like my favorite part about Jeff. He would be like, everybody was measuring their dicks, making these massive pre-workouts, and I wanted mine to be bigger than everybody else. But so also, it's a limited edition sort of run, right? So
Yeah, well, that's
everyone's out there going and buying. There was like the Rise Godzilla, and then Robbie, you came out with Triumph, this monstrosity of a pre-workout, and then so Jeff's like, well, I'm gonna make a pre-workout that's 30 servings. That it literally it's in the same size tub as Glaxon's isolate, right? It seriously comes in like a giant tub, and because it kind of like fits a few needs where the customers want it. Customers are asking for
Well,
stuff.
you know what? I'm gonna add to it because I think that now obviously as a brand owner, I'm actually gonna defend Jeff. I'm gonna defend Jeff and what he did. I don't think it's a dick measurement competition, and I'll explain why. If you take, for example, Hooligan, right? You take Hooligan. Hooligan, we all know what it does. Clearly, it works. It's been a huge hit for many years now. And it has, 20, 25 gram serving. It's a decent serving. But the thing is that it's efficacious dosages. And apart from the fact that it's efficacious dosages, when you take it, the pump aspect of the pre-workout, you feel. The focus aspect of the pre-workout, you do feel. The energy part of the pre-workout, you do feel. So everything that Hooligan means to deliver, it delivers. Now, why don't I think that what Jeff, I kind of sort of see Robert's point, from a scientific perspective, and he's not wrong. 60 grams pre-workout.
We have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, but the thing is like we know there are 5 and 10 gram pre-workouts that don't do shit. We've seen shitload of those. We've seen some that are 20 grams and they're shit too. But we've seen some of them like Apollon, and then like maybe Morphogen and a couple of other companies, or NutriBio that has also 20 grams plus. They clearly work. They clearly work and they clearly deliver. Now the reason, any other company, I would not say anything. But Jeff, here's the reason why I'm going to defend what he's doing. I don't think Jeff is doing a dick measurement competition, not at least when it comes to that space, because Jeff's pre-workout will not compete, for example, with me. It's just completely different. What it does, everything that Jeff does is Jeff's customers that want his pre-workout more than likely will not buy mine, and my customers will not buy his. I don't even think we are competitors. Only if you look at us, maybe if I have isolate and he has isolate, so you're probably gonna prefer one or the other. So maybe we're competing to an extent in that space. But everything else, when it comes to other products, most of them, I don't think we compete. Maybe to an extent, but not aggressively, especially not when it comes to pre-workouts. We're just a lot more aggressive. We are a lot more hardcore, and we're just different. Jeff does things his way. I think he did want in a way to be bigger than others. I think that definitely he has that in his personality. He knows very well that this particular pre-workout cannot be a regular pre-workout. So he releases, my guess, a few hundred units, maybe 1,000 units or something like that. I doubt more than that because clearly it's an expensive product. I know exactly how much Triumph is. So those are expensive products. I think he wanted to just basically go and say like, oh, look, I have a big dick. I think, he wanted to do that, but not necessarily to compare his dick to other dicks. It was mostly for his own. It was mostly for his own pleasure, so to speak. Maybe to boost his own ego, and basically say like, "Look, I have the biggest container, and I have 60 gram scoop, but the formula itself is within Jeff's kind of philosophy and his own identity. Just like we talked about Ghost and people trying to be like Ghost or like Apollon, he did not try to be like somebody else. That's the reason why I'm not saying he's competing with somebody else. He's probably just making a statement within his own kind of way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out your market for Apollon, for like a Pro, for every other supplement brand out there. It is not the 1% of the 1%. It is the average consumer. Because if you're just marketing to the elite of the elite, it's not a sustainable business model. And
Yeah,
so I'm trying to figure out, like, you need to have something that appeals to a larger demographic. And from my, my point of view, which, Jeff is a successful bodybuilder, successful business owner. So don't take anything I'm saying for granted. Just throw it in the trash if you want to. But if you're trying to bring in more consumers, do something that behooves them. The average 100-pound female, 175, 180-pound male.
They're not going to take it. You're right.
Well,
you're right. And
they
they're not
could
going to
take it,
spend the money.
but they're not benefiting from it.
They're not.
And
But
they're
the
going to
thing
either
about
take
him
it in
is-
and they're going to crap it out. And it's
Robert,
it's either
like,
going
to give you an example, when I was in high school, I lived in Israel, and I actually told the story recently to somebody. We had this class clown, so to speak, very good-looking kid. We were like 14 or something like that. But at the age of 14, 15, this kid was just fucking. He looked like a model. He had a six-pack, had a phenomenal physique, very smart kid, but loved attention. He loved attention. He would be sitting in a classroom, quiet classroom, we're listening to the teacher explaining shit to us, and everybody's quiet. It's a classroom, they're in class. All of a sudden, he will burst into this thing where he would be sitting and go like, "Hey, teacher," and everybody like, "What the fuck?" He goes, "I'm so handsome." He would scream that, and everybody would look at him, and everybody would laugh, and everybody would be like, and he was the center of attention at that very moment. It would last a couple of minutes, less than that. So I think, and again, I'm not saying that Jeff is doing it necessarily, but I think when you're releasing something like that, you will have a small number of consumers that will purchase it. It's going to be a small number, without a doubt. You're getting attention. You just want to get attention. It's still efficacious dosages. There's maybe a little bit overload of stuff, and maybe it's unnecessarily so. But his customers will kind of go like, "Oh, look, I got a top of this monster," and that's pretty much it. They will buy it once, and that's it. And he's not going to bring it back. Maybe he'll bring it back a little bit later or something like that.
I can only speak because I've talked to him about the product a million times. The one thing that Robert said that was part of it is the thing about Jeff. I know Jeff really well, and like his complete health product was another version of this. He actually, he's not concerned with bringing in new customers or the average customer.
No, he's not.
He always says to me, like, he's like, I make stuff that I want to fuck with. He's like, and if you don't want to fuck with it, I don't care. He's like, this is what I want. He's like, I want to make some, and then this product is also a higher stim. He's going like, most of his pre-workouts are always like 150 stim. His fat burners are like 150 stim. This one I think is like 350, somewhere in there. So his customers have always wanted a higher stim offering too from him. And he's like, all right, well, if I'm going to do it, and he's like, I'm just going to make something. Because also his point, which is also very true, Rob, I don't know, did you, so the 3D pump product, right? We know when we were testing 3D pump, it does perform a lot better at 12 grams than 6. But
because it has 6 grams of citrulline, it makes sense.
Right, but it's very expensive. It was very expensive, and people were not willing to go above the 6 grams in a specific formula. And he's like, because he had tested it out too, many times. He's like, I'm not going to use this ingredient unless I can put in 12 grams. So I think it kind of led him to the path of, he's like, all right, I need something higher stim. He's like, and I want it to be different than his Pump and Focus product. He's like, so I have to differentiate it. And then he's like, and I want 12 grams of 3D pump. And then he kind of walked himself into this, ridiculous.
It's the 3D pump, when I saw, to be honest with you, the whole formula, when I saw, I was like, okay, sometimes people think that, certain Apollon products are like over the top and stuff like that. But in reality, if you look in them, they're really not. They just fully dosed, and that's about it. Mm-hmm. When I saw his product, I thought it was a little bit over the top. But when I saw 3D pump, everybody where I saw that, the only company that I saw that used it properly, in my opinion, was Performance, because he used the 6 grams, but within 6 grams, it's only 3 grams of citrulline. So you added another 3 grams of citrulline, and I thought it was like, okay, that's spot on. That's exactly, I can definitely support that. That was done obviously using brain. So what Jeff did, I mean, he has 6 grams of citrulline, and that's basically more of a dosage that we like. I'm still, I contemplated using 3D pump myself a couple of times. I just can't stand behind that. I can't justify it. I'm sorry, I can't. And I like Bruce, and but at the same time, I can't justify it because I believe that you can spend money on getting 6 to 8 to 10 grams of citrulline and spending far less money, and then getting maybe another glycerol product, and it's still going to be cheaper, and you can even use higher dosages. So I can't really stand behind it that much. I'm not saying it's a bad ingredient, God knows. I mean, it's a decent ingredient, it's good. It's just, I do feel that if you use it, you have to use it the way Jeff Long did it, which is double the recommended dose that they're using. But at the same time, now when we're talking about basically 12 grams, which yields only 6 grams of citrulline, now you're paying ridiculous money just to have a trademark. And I know how Robert feels about trademark. Most of the trademarks he can't stand because he thinks that it's unnecessary. There are certain trademarks that are phenomenal, but in this particular case, I think that this is unnecessary because you can get the same ingredients that this particular ingredient has, or this product, and you can get it cheaper and actually use even higher dosages, which is going to yield even better results. The only difference is you're not going to have a trademark. And so that's my only issue with that particular product.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you too. A lot of brands, I think
it's
that's
unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. With all due respect to Bruce, it's unnecessary. I can't justify it whatsoever.
But that was also one thing that I've talked about this on my stories. I've talked about this with Jeff, and Apollon fits in the same kind of thing. Back in the day, so customers, one of the things I struggle with when it comes to customers is a customer only sees the final price, right? Customers don't even like to stop and try and figure out how many servings they're getting and try to figure out price per serving, right? We know price per serving matters more than the price, right? So Jeff always does 30 servings on his stuff, and as we've seen it, the protein servings have gone down in tubs, and so because brands don't want to keep raising the price tag, so they lower the amount of product.
The servings, yeah.
But we've seen companies do it in kind of shady ways. They'll say, "Oh, there's 40 servings in this, but there's really only 20."
There's only 20, yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, but they don't want to mess with that final price tag, because that's where. So one thing that I thought was good about Jeff was something like Complete Health, where he says people are like, "Oh my God, it's 12 pills and it's $130 or whatever it is." But when you work with the customer, when you take the time to educate them, if a person is all of a sudden willing, they go, "Okay, I'm getting more product, so I understand that I pay more money." You would think that would be a really simple thing. I make the grocery store analogy with people all the time. I said, picture you go into a grocery store. Would you ever grab more food and expect to pay the same amount of money as less food? But people don't look at the supplement space like they do going to the grocery store, right?
And that's the only way to educate them. Absolutely.
Right. So
you have to educate them.
Right. So when Jeff dropped the Complete Health, you start to work with people and you see they're open to, okay, maybe I don't need maybe a tub of Complete Health for the normal person lasts 2 or 3 months based on dosages. If you're on PEDs, if you're not on PEDs, there are certain things you need more of. So anyway, getting people comfortable with paying more for really, really well done products, all of a sudden I think that opens up the industry for guys like you, guys that want to make really, really cool stuff, but you were sort of like, you're kind of in a box when it comes to the amount of money you can charge. So there wasn't a lot of innovation going on. There was not a lot of cool stuff going on because you're like, well, I can only charge $30 for a pre-workout. What the fuck am I going to put in there to make a profit on $30? This and that. But now all of a sudden, you're getting people used to okay, I understand if I want more stuff, I'll pay more money for it. So it's good for the entire industry when you can sort of break out of those price brackets that we constantly saw, right? You could never charge. Remember, like not that long ago, you could never charge more than $40 for 30 servings in a pre-workout, and then all of a sudden it crept up, and now
Yeah, it's a crap up. Yeah,
and now we're like $80, Triumph and for 20 servings. You could a few years back you could have probably never made Triumph.
No, it will not be possible today. Like people, and you can explain to them, like, look what goes into the product, and they. I mean, again, especially the customers that we have, customers that Jeff has. That's what I call customers that are more knowledgeable, that actually read the labels, read the dosages, and know exactly why they paying what they paying for a product. And in most cases, they're willing to pay it because they know that, I'm not going to say they saving necessarily, but in reality, they do. Because when you take a product like Jeff Long's Complete Health, or you take Apollon's Resistance, products are not cheap. But if you calculate kind of all the ingredients that's in them, if you are going to buy them separately,
right,
you're going to pay double, if not triple, what you're going to be paying for everything in one bottle. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense. And like I said, the customers are definitely getting more knowledgeable. They actually, especially I think after COVID, people actually, kind of like a little bit more cautious, and they read the labels a little bit. And I can even see, that they willing to learn now. They're not as lazy as they used to be, where, an athlete says like, oh, this is the best on the market, and now they're blindly buying it. It's not the case anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't happen anymore. It's a good thing.
Yeah, so before we wrap up, I have to bring it up. So as much as Jeff Long said great things about you, going back to this, I know somebody who actually gave me permission today, and, basically said not very favorable things about you.
All right.
And that's my former co-host of the Final Scoop, Lucas. Where
Who?
And I quote, he called you a snake.
A snake.
And it was something to do with obviously the group that you started and him not being part of that group. And he felt, basically it's your chance, because I believe that the reason why I brought it up, obviously, because we like talking shit. But another thing is, I know that you're not going to back off, and you're not the type of person to run away from it. But the thing is that I firmly believe that there are people that like you, that there are people that dislike you, just like with me, just like with anyone else. But sometimes, if I'm going to talk shit, say, for example, about you to Robert, and Robert doesn't know you, he might think that you are a piece of shit or a snake or whoever.
Sure.
So basically sometimes maybe things are taken out of context, and, maybe they're a little bit misleading and stuff like that. And I don't expect you to basically attack anyone or anything like that. You can leave it up to me, but to be a dick. But if people don't like you or dislike you for whatever reason, why do you think is that? Have you done anything maybe that you regret? And maybe there's even your chance to apologize.
Certifiably, Justin is a piece of shit.
I will say this.
Now it's two people. It's Lucas and Robert.
I'll get to the Lucas thing is great because I can literally just tell exactly what happened, and people will go,
okay.
And people will go, that dude's a fucking dick, right? Because he is. I'll tell you exactly what happened, and you're gonna go, what a fucking douchebag, and it's exactly what happened. The other part of it, and this is actually gonna probably make some people not like me more, but I feel like
seriously, I'm trying to give you a chance to defend yourself, but you're making more people dislike you.
I honestly feel like in this space, and it's not everyone, but if someone doesn't like me, like Lucas, it's because I don't fucking want him to like me. Because I don't because I'm very much like how you treat me is how I treat you. But I'll probably, so like if you're cool to me, like I'll be overly nice to you. If you kind of fuck with me, I'll go.
Because you know what?
I'll go over the top.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll say this because when I actually the one who did the graphics for this interview was actually Sean from Sub Talk. And when I told him that you're going to be the guest, he goes to me, oh, I was under, maybe misunderstanding that maybe you and Justin didn't see eye to eye or something. Like I said, that is correct. I said there was an instance that I actually publicly spoke about, but we actually talked about it, and it was basically not even squashed. It was just something that we faced each other and we confronted each other. You said what you didn't like, I said what I didn't like, and we walked away. I think that in a very good, positive way. And as soon as you expressed the desire to be on the podcast, I jumped on it because I think that you are somebody who is known within the industry, and people can benefit from listening to you. But if somebody doesn't like you, I think you can at least explain the reason.
Well, yeah, because the thing with like you and I think that that's one thing that, and this is another thing with you, whereas we will
talk.
We always will. I will always acknowledge when I'm wrong. And
same here.
When you and I, when we had our moment there, what happened with me, like we already talked about this. I should have talked to you first, and I told you this. I said I would have saved the entire misunderstanding had I went to you first and asked for information, which I know I could have. What I tried to do in that moment, I didn't like the way the person's question came across. It was almost like they were insinuating, because I remember it distinctly. They said you had just switched manufacturers, and they were like, well, why is Apollon's...
It was misinterpreted, yeah.
They were like, why is Apollon's products better now that they... So the way I took it, and I actually was trying to defend you, because I was like, no, their products are not just better because they switched. Because that to me, like, it seemed weird. Like, they were almost insinuating that you were at somewhere shady before. And so I was like in a rush to be like, nope, squash that. And then it
just escalated to something. But like I said, I'm glad that the same thing I said with Ryan. I still disagree with Ryan on a lot of stuff, but I respect the fact that he can fucking pick up the phone and tell me to go fuck myself, and he's not gonna go and basically avoid me. I'm gonna avoid him. But the thing is that you are a snake, and here is your chance to defend. Are you a snake or are you not?
Well, so it's just, when it comes from somebody like that, so here is exactly what happened. And if he says that anything different happened, he's a fucking liar. So I didn't really like him anyway, to be honest with you. He was just kind of a dick rider, in the space where he just was constantly like, he was in every conversation, and he was like just, he gave off that vibe where he was just always trying to get something from a company. And the first thing he did that pissed me off big time was he scheduled a meeting with me under false pretenses. He wasted my time. So he says, hey, I want to talk to you about something to do with the app and being international and stuff like that. And he's like, let's schedule a Zoom meeting. I'm like, okay, cool. Great opportunity. I don't know what goes on over there in Europe. I'm still new to this whole thing. I end up meeting with this person, and it's not even him. Basically, what he did was he scheduled a meeting to try to help spread the app in Europe. He essentially tried to pitch his app development services on me. And I was like, this is not what you said this meeting was about. And that pissed me off, because I'm like, I took time out of my day, and I wouldn't have taken time out of my day to listen to a pitch. So it was false pretenses. So I didn't really like him anyway. So then he joins the group, and everybody, Rob, you pay for the group. Dan from Ghost and Michael, all these guys, right? They pay every single month in the group. So Lucas joins the group. First of all, I was kind of like, fuck, man, I don't even want his money. I don't even want him in the group. But I'm like, okay, whatever. So he's in there, and the first month goes by, and he doesn't pay for his second month. So I say to him, I said, yeah, you can't be in the group anymore if you don't pay. And he's like, well, the app isn't really something that benefits me. I was like, I don't care. You're just that good. So I'm like, you just can't be in the group anymore. So he's like, well, I thought if I could show my value and my knowledge and stuff like that you would let me stay in there for free. Meanwhile, you pay. Dan, all these other people pay. I was like, so you think that you're above all these other people, these people that spend their hardworking money on and pay for this and support and all this other thing. I was like, you think that you're somehow above that? I'm like, who the fuck are you, first of all? But I was like, no, you're not above that. I was like, see you later. So if that makes me a snake, there is nothing else that happened besides that. Like, so it sounds to me like he's looking at in the mirror and then wanting to blame it on me.
Do you think that perhaps you came off harsh because you?
I hope so.
Okay, I'm trying to be as neutral as I can be, because this is Lucas and I obviously talk, and we co-hosted the Final Scoop, and we talk all the time. But the thing is that I promised myself, when Lucas was not particularly thrilled that I'm wanted to welcome you on the show. But the thing is that when it came up, he said that basically you can tell that to Justin. I was like, don't tempt me, because I will. And the reason is because that's just the way I am. But the thing is that I'm trying to stay as neutral as I can be right now. But the truth is like what I do sort of, I don't know, I'm really, really careful not to offend anyone right now, but I actually am careful.
We're way past that.
Yeah, that's true. You just keep drinking.
This is water.
Oh my God.
Definitely vodka.
The reason why I'm saying is that because maybe, sometimes we meet people that we automatically dislike, and we are maybe a little cold towards those people, a little bit harsh. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be, as much as I wanted to kind of quote unquote accuse you of that, you kind of admitted you didn't like him and you wanted him out of the group. So that's what it seems like.
Well, yeah. So I'm like, well, okay, but if you're not paying for it, then you can't be in it. That's just kind of like a hard and fast rule. But the thing about me is, like, I think, and even say we had, I don't want to call it a fallout with Ben from Price Bond and stuff like that, but I had kind of a fallout with Matt Nickerson. I don't need to go into details about that, but I will always analyze when I do something wrong, and I'll be the first person to tell you that I did something wrong. I reached out to Matt down the road, and it wasn't that I felt I did anything wrong, but I told him, I was like, you know what, man, for my part in this misunderstanding, I was like, I'm sorry, because I think life is too short for the shit we're doing. And Ben, I actually reached out to him after John Meadows died, and I said, hey, man, I know we don't talk anymore. I said, but, sometimes life is too short for this shit, that we're doing, where we waste our time fucking around, stuff like that. So I hold myself accountable to, I think, in a way that so that other people don't have to. Like we were talking about it before I say something out there, I think about it and I go, okay, are you ready to deal with what you're about to say? Do you really mean this? So I always try to do a lot of like introspection and thinking about the things I'm about to say and put out there, and I'll stop. Like just like with the whole thing with you, I was like, I could have solved that problem if I would have just reached out to you first, and you and I never would have been freaking out on each other and saying. And I was like, that was my fault. I should have just reached out to you. It was stupid not to.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. Everything, actually. In industry, in any family, in any relationship, in any friendship, there are times where you come to disagreements. Robert and I had a disagreement. Robert and probably his sister had disagreements. It just comes with the territory. It's one of those things.
It's gonna happen.
It's going to happen sooner or later. It all comes down to the fact: do you want to resolve it, and do you want to squash it? And sometimes you just want certain person just out of your life and stuff like that. Is it something that you think, like, you and I had, like you said, our moment, and it was squashed, moved on, and whatever? Do you think it's something that could have been done with Lucas too, where you could squash it and move on, or you're not even interested?
I mean, honestly, I hadn't even thought about that dude until you brought him up today. And like years, like for him to still today to call me a snake is like, dude, get over it. Like you had nothing else to do but to worry about me and like be pissed off that I'm on a podcast. I can't imagine someone having that type of influence over my feelings like years down. It's not like we were best friends for like 10 years and there was this crazy falling out. It's like, dude, I didn't even know you. Like I wouldn't know him from anybody. It's like we don't jive. So it's like, what do you care a couple years later if I'm on your podcast? If he was on, you guys did a podcast together, did I ever say anything like, I can't believe you're with Lucas, Rob, we're not friends anymore? Like, dude, for someone to have that kind of, I guess, power over you years later, I would never allow that.
I have a question for both of you. It's a quick question and a quick answer. Um, what would be one thing that you think you would suggest or do, or the industry could benefit from to make it better? Robert, you go first.
I'm glad you're first.
Mhm.
Are we going strictly sports nutrition or supplement industry in general?
Supplement industry in general.
More companies funding research.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay. So a follow-up question to you right now. Do you see majority of ingredients, specifically trademark ingredients, which I know you're very, very sometimes critical of, do you see majority of trademark ingredients? Because I know what a nerd you are, and you're researching everything and reading about it. I mean, I'll ask him a fucking question about a supplement, and he goes like, "Oh, I have to read about it. I don't have enough information about it." And then he fucking disappears for 3 days and sends me like fucking this poem that I'm like, seriously, dude. I asked you a simple question, just fucking answer it. No, he has to send me like shitload of material because apparently he didn't forget about it. He was researching it for fucking 3 days. So the follow-up question to you is like, do you see majority of ingredients because of lack of research or whatever, or backup, scientific backup, are garbage?
There, for the
S7
listeners
comes
out
to
there,
mind.
there's a difference between trademarked ingredients and then the ones that have the actual patented, registered the little R with the circle around it
Well,
on the
we know
label.
that basically everybody goes after trademark because they think that that's enough to kind
Yeah,
of con the consumer into buying stuff because, oh, look, it's trademark.
right. And trademarks are infinitely cheaper than getting something patented, researched, verified, and all of that. Um, the vast majority of trademarked ingredients, I would say, push them by the wayside. Go for generics. If you're looking for actual patented, research-backed ingredients, it's more of a touch and go situation. Certain ones, obviously, yes, I will give the thumbs up to and go for it. Nitrosogene, absolutely one of the ones that I will give you the thumbs up. Vasodrive, AP, amyl peptide, teacrine, yeah, all day, every day. I'm a huge fan of all of those ingredients. Other ones, I'm reticent because there's either a lack of funding for them, a lack of research, or it's just you're paying the minimum amount of money to get a little TM next to your specific name your buzzword name that you figured out. And then another issue with a lot of the ingredient houses, so certain ingredients like S7, Citrapeak, there are they are backed by very small studies or a few studies that include very few amounts of individuals. And Citrapeak in general, or in particular, the main study on that, and I've talked with Justin about this before, the study that they're showing that says they quote unquote increase blood flow, they took the individual's hands, stuck it in cold water, took it out, and measured blood flow to the hand. Then they gave them a dose of Citrapeak, stuck their hand back in cold water again, and took it out and measured blood flow through their hand. And they said their marketing literature now says increases blood flow by XYZ%. I thought that means fuck all for exercise performance, muscle growth, anabolic signaling, nutrient partitioning, anything else that you're actually marketing for. So you need to be very, very, very careful. And same thing with S7 from Futureceuticals, which Futureceuticals is also the same ingredient house.
How did I know this was coming? I could
Yeah.
feel it. I could feel this coming.
That does Neurofactor,
That's
which is
waiting.
one of my favorite non-stimulant nootropics. But S7 studies are dog shit, just like the Citrapeak studies are dog shit. In my opinion, this is not medical advice. This is not, advice from a doctor to say you should go buy this ingredient, you should not
But
buy
it's
this.
not really an opinion because you're stating facts. There is lack of evidence. There is lack of.
So we don't get sued. This is my opinion as a nerd, somebody that reads research
Yeah.
and consults on dietary supplements.
I get that question I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
I've actually had it a lot recently where people go, do trademark ingredients matter or not? And I'm like, I said, honest to God, it's like a case by case basis.
Yeah.
You really have to look at it.
Yeah. So Citrapeak might be helpful in conjunction with other nitric oxide enhancing supplements. Should I list it as the feature hallmark ingredient in a pump pre-workout or cardiovascular enhancing support formula? No. Same thing with S7.
So I'll say, I don't know how we're going to do this. We've thought about this a lot, but I think when it comes to the manufacturing process, I don't like regulation. I don't like oversight and things like that. And I know even talking about regulation, makes people uncomfortable because there's kind of a Pandora's box sort of effect. But
agreed.
The more I get into it and the more I've made products and been around, brand owners and this is something that, Dan and I have had these conversations about, and, you feel for these people. A lot of people are like, well, Justin, why don't you make your own brand? And sometimes I'm like, well, I don't want to compete against these guys that are always already doing all these crazy things. But I don't want to fucking compete against these people that they can charge, say, less money, or they can do certain things because we still have that issue. As much as I think quality, and I could be wrong here, maybe it's just my lens that I look through, I think that the industry has improved a lot, but I think we still have a long way to go when it comes to manufacturing. And because we get all these ingredients, from India and China and things like that, and we know the NutriBios, and we know the companies that go through the testing processes and the rigorous sort of things and the amount of stuff they have to throw out and send back. And you see these pop-up manufacturers will come up and they'll undercut. And it's not even just a brand thing. It's also, I see, friends of mine that are manufacturers and things like that. It's not a fair playing field for companies to compete in this space sometimes, because certain manufacturers and brands are willing, and a lot of times the brands don't even know. Brands think they're paying for something and they're not getting it. And we know that stuff still happens too much. And I don't know what the solution is other than some extra, but the FDA and stuff doesn't get involved in supplements. They don't have the resources to get involved in supplements. And do we really want them involved as it is? It's kind of a question, but it sucks because I watch good people trying to do like really, really good things and make really high quality stuff. And I see them have to fight against people that are willing to do whatever it takes, to make a sale. And these are dietary supplements. They go in people's bodies. They're supposed to be taken for health, and it just still kind of bothers me, I guess.
And that's actually interesting because like you said, it seems sometimes like there is a need for somebody to get involved and kind of like help regulate the industry, because sometimes it's just all over the place. But on the other hand, do we really want them?
Right.
That's a whole other question. How far are we going to go? Because you go to some of the countries and basically half of the shit is not allowed. Like, for example, agmatine is not allowed in UK. And from what I understand, alpha GPC is not allowed anymore, or just about to get banned or something like that. And when you're trying to look up the literature on what is it based, you're not going to find anything, because basically the governing body can just step in at any point and say like, okay, this is not allowed anymore. Based on what? Who are you to tell me what I can and cannot use? Yeah. Which can be a problem.
So
all
I
right,
think
so yeah.
I was gonna say one of the only like simple, or I don't want to say simple, but quick ways I could figure is the more we get customers involved, and the more we, like, I'll never get on here and just stand on a soapbox and be like, unless the manufacturer shows you third-party testing data or whatever, then don't fucking buy from them, this and that. But I don't think customers, because we sort of take for granted what we know about this space, whereas I don't even think the majority of people walking into a GNC or something like that realizes that those brands don't make their own products. In a lot of cases, some do, right? But they don't realize that there's these bigger manufacturers out there that are pumping out, multiple brands at the same time and things like that. And I think that there's an inherent trust factor by people walking in that these products have all gone through certain amounts of regulations, and when we know some of them haven't. And that's the part. So if we at least get that conversation started, you can have people with all the information and all the access we have to people these days. People can at least open up that dialogue with a brand or something like that. And then if they get shut down, or if a brand says, yes, here's what we do, here's our quality, and you should at least be able to ask questions, this day and age. I'm not saying like it should be the end all be all, and if they don't show you everything immediately, you should report them to the authorities or anything like that. But it's just like you should be able to have a dialogue, I think, with a company these days.
Okay. To wrap up this pretty cool interview, I mean, this is gonna fucking piss off some people, but at the same time, I think it's very educational, and I mean, I myself learned a lot, and I think it's been very helpful and can be helpful to a lot of people. I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions that I want fast answers to, so kind of like a little blitz, so to speak. Number one, can anyone join your group?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's open to the public, it's open to anyone, it's not by invitation. If somebody wants to join, they can just join.
Yeah, if you subscribe to the app, Lucas, then you can be in the group. And actually, I will say this, like, just most people assume it's just for bodybuilders and these high level. It's the opposite. It's all walks of life, man.
If there is one channel other than yours, obviously, that you would recommend for a consumer, you're a channel, you're a fucking engineer. One channel that you would recommend if somebody wants to get all the latest news on supplements and stuff like that, somebody, a channel that in your opinion maybe is not biased or anything, which one channel would you recommend for newbies and for beginners, or maybe even people that don't know?
Oh, Stacked, absolutely Stacked. Stacked helped me tremendously when I was first kind of getting here. Shane, nobody outworked Shane. Nobody.
Okay. You personally, if I came to you and I would ask you, Justin, you know what, I want to buy some supplements, what 3, 4, 5 brands you don't mind recommending?
Geez, 3 or 4.
You can be 7. It's just the ones that come to mind that you feel comfortable that, if you're going to recommend to me to buy them, that particular brand, I'm not going to go, you're not going to be embarrassed or let down that, it's you're giving somebody wrong advice.
Yeah, it's a little off the beaten path when we talk about like health supplements. I think places like Life Extension they're really, man, that place is awesome. Like them and Thorne, they are really doing things that I think are beyond what our sports nutrition place does. I think NutriBio is a great one, just simply for a newbie coming in, because I think newbies have a lot of questions about where the ingredients are coming from. That Check My Subs thing is just an amazing thing for people to have access to. I think Glaxon, I love what Glaxon has done coming in the space with just, some different, not saying like reinventing the space, but just with a little bit different takes on some things. And I think it's made other people kind of step their game up. You guys, everybody's in competition with each other, so they kind of step it up. And if you want a good protein, I would buy Apollon's protein, of course. We ripped through that the blackberry cheesecake. Dude, that was gone in like a week.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Another question that I want to ask you is, do you think you clearly like, strong pre-workouts, strong high-stim pre-workouts, but clearly they're not for everybody. If there is, how should one proceed with caution when selecting a pre-workout, especially, high-stim? Because let's face it, there is proprietary blends. There is, things that are made underground. Nobody knows. When NutriBio is made, but some people might not know. NutriBio might be this crappy underground company and not a legit company. But when somebody is about to purchase a pre-workout, how should they go about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing I've been doing, because I don't actually use high stims that often anymore. I actually keep Jeff's Pump and Focus product. Dude, the energy from that product on 150 caffeine is it doesn't it does so I like to keep that on hand, and I use that quite often, so I'm not using high stims all the time. But I will say, in this, when you're younger, this is part of the appeal of pre-workouts, is you're not quite sure what's going on in there with the pre-workouts. But when it comes to like using a pre-workout, and maybe this is just the age speaking, it's just not worth it to fuck around with products that you just don't know enough about sort of what's in there. And there's nothing, I've used all of them, and there's not a pre-workout. Even the way we talk about Jack 3D, we're misremembering history. That product was not that great. It was DMAA, and people look back on it lovingly, but it wasn't that great of a product.
I actually agree on that one.
Yeah, it wasn't anything special. So I just think that there's nothing out there these days that is the unicorn pre-workout. Your body can only feel so many things. It doesn't need all that extra, gas sometimes. And a lot of times I had to do this myself. I had to look at myself and go, dude, this is a you thing. You don't need this stuff necessarily. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with high stims like every once in a while, but those sketchy brands, man, and stuff like that, if you feel something is off when you look at a pre-workout, move on to something else, because there's good companies that make really, really good quality pre-workouts out there.
That's actually a very good point. Was there a time where you were disappointed by a pre-workout that you expected it to be good, but it wasn't exactly what you expected from that? And was there a pre-workout that surprised you, that was better than expected?
The one that just surprised me, man, I've been telling everybody. You know me, like if I find something that really blows my mind, I'm gonna tell everybody. And it's Jeff's freaking new. His last Pump and Focus was pretty good. I liked it. He made some tweaks to it, changed some things around. 150 caffeine, man. I'm telling you, like it made me fall in love with low stim pre-workouts all over again. It was just that's an awesome pre-workout, and it's kind of one of those ones too. There's a lot of being lower stim. I think everybody should probably have it on their shelf, to be honest with you, because it's a good mix-up if you like high stims, but it'll still give people that energy with hopefully sparing your insides a little bit. That one really shocked me. Like I was floored. One that I would say maybe it probably and Glaxon's one of my favorite companies, hands down. Their pre-workouts, and I think it's because they've sort of started to go more. They're in GNC now, so their original like specimen stuff like that thing fucking smacked the shit out of you, right? But now they're sort of getting to a different demographic, and they have some different sort of very smart, very unique ways to find energy within their pre-workouts. But their pre-workouts, for me anymore, just not really. People love them, and I love the company, for sure. But their pre-workouts, anymore, I think it's kind of not really like one that I.
That's a very, very. I mean, that I can respect that answer, because I know how much you respect the company, and to come out and basically state your opinion, it's definitely admirable.
Yeah, they're good. It's just like I said. It's just it's still a lot of caffeine and stuff like that, and for the amount of caffeine and things, it doesn't. Like I told Michael this in a text message. I said, because he asked me how do I feel on the new pre-workout. I said, honestly, Jeff's 150 caffeine pre-workout and what he's got going on there, I said I get more energy from that with less,
well, at least it's honest. I'm going to ask you one last question. That was actually a question that I was asked, but I don't know if I was exactly the person to ask that question. So when I was at Nutrition Corners Not Bash, somebody asked me a question. I'm about to start my own brand. What advice can you give me? And I told the guy, I said, listen, I said, I have my own vision, my own approach. I told him, from my perspective, you have to identify who you are. And you have to identify your target market because, I mean, let's face it, just like Jeff Long has his market, I have my market. They're slightly different markets, but we have our audience. You have to kind of come to terms of who you are, what you want to bring to the table, and kind of come, within your own identity, I guess. That was my answer. I don't know if it was the right answer or the wrong answer, but I think you are more qualified to answer that question than actually I am, since you're on the sideline, somebody who doesn't have his own brand, but yet you're dealing with multiple brands. You're friends with multiple brand owners, and you've seen that. And I think this is actually, I'm going to kind of give myself props for this one. I think it's a brilliant question to ask you, and kind of to close off the show with, what advice would you give to up and coming brand, a startup?
Yeah, and I think your answer is phenomenal, because we go through this a lot. It's a fantasy, right? Where people are like, I love pre-workouts and I love this, so everyone wants to start a brand around a pre-workout. And what you don't realize is, and this is why I don't have my own sports nutrition brand. We've done Amazon things and health supplements, but when it comes to actual sports, you know why? Because honestly, man, I know what to do and things like that. I know that it's too much. I don't have the passion to get me through how fucking hard that, especially now, those first years are going to be. Because I see people all the time. They love the space, and so they think that entitles them to make a brand. But you don't realize, like, you're about to go. I don't want to say go to war, because that's disrespectful. But you're about to go into the trenches against people that do this for a fucking living, and their livelihoods depend on it. Their families that you're trying to take care of, and not only that, but you can't these days. You can't copy a playbook and expect to beat these people, right? You're going into it with places like you, when we talked about Core and stuff. These aren't just big brands. They have amazing formulas. You're not going to go out there and out-formulate a Glaxon, an Apollon, a Core, a Leica Pro. So what are you bringing to the table? What is it? And you better be really, really sure about who you are going into this thing, and can you get through, those multiple, the cash flow gets crazy. You're releasing new products all the time. It turns your books into a nightmare. Have your financial plan in order. People learn their numbers way down the road. We have people come to us all the time that they're like, I have no idea why I have no money. And we're like, they've never looked at their books. They don't know whether they're making money. They know they're making sales, but they don't know if they're making any profit. The money goes right back to your manufacturer as soon as you sell. So I think, like, having a firm grasp, if you need to have some sort of accounting in place at first, to have some kind of background there, but just be prepared for what you're about to get yourself into, because these days you are going into a space with, like, elite level marketers, e-com people, formulators. So where are you going to differentiate yourself? And you better not start copying what other people are doing, or you're already lost.
I think it's a brilliant answer, and like I said, I definitely spot on. I mean, nothing else to add to that.
You've done it.
So
You've done it.
Yeah, I think that was very good. I mean, Justin, I want to thank you for this, not interview, but a chat. I think that was phenomenal. And I think that, hopefully Robert will agree with me. I think we should do a live Q&A down the line, maybe like, in 2-3 weeks, and, with some of people that want to ask you directly questions. And I think that definitely should be done, because I think that there is a lot that can be discussed and a lot of questions that can be answered directly. And if somebody wants to clarify something, they'll be able to do it. So I definitely propose we do that. We announce it and make sure that people prepare well. But once again, thank you for the interview. To those we offended, we're not going to apologize, because we were just stating our own opinion and how we feel. And, and all of you that dislike or disagree with us, you know where to reach us. We can always talk about it, discuss it, just like Justin and I did, and just like grown-ups do. But we'll always be we'll always be stating our opinion and speak freely, not just behind your backs, but to your faces.
Yeah, no,
So
and I super appreciate you, and I've told you this tons of times, so I'll tell everyone that listens to this as well. If whether you hated me or we were best friends, I would tell everyone when they talk about you, people like you are needed in this space because you don't sit there and just complain about the problems, right? You will actually like us having dialogue. That helps. It helps drive everything forward. And what you did last year, you said there's this huge problem, going on that's very close to home for me, and you didn't sit on social media and talk about how bad it was. You went, and that's the type of person you are. If you see something that you feel is an injustice to whatever level or something you don't agree with, you don't just sit there and complain. And if more people would take a proactive attitude about it, whether people like it or not, they have to respect it. So I just respect that about you. Like I said, no matter whether we knew each other or whether we were best friends, I would always say that about people or about you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I mean, many people would come to me and ask me, would talk to me about politics, Russia, Ukraine, Russia. I was like, we're not talking about politics here. We're talking about lives lost. We're talking about war. We're talking about casualties of war, because somebody is doing what we talked about supplement industry. Politicians are playing dick measurement contests and pocketing huge sums of money from war, and that is just wrong. And rather than sit up or talk about it, I don't think that what I did necessarily is heroic or changed anything, but maybe on a very, very small case, it contributed or helped somebody. And you know what? And if I'm in that position, and I could have been because I was born in that country. So if my parents didn't immigrate to Israel in 1988, I mean, I still would have been there, and I would be directly affected by it. My daughter would be affected by it. My family would be affected by it. And if somebody came and extended, a hand and helped me with, maybe a piece of bread or medication or, or $1, something to help me survive, I would obviously cherish and appreciate it greatly. And I think that that's what the humanity is all about. We can bitch and complain nonstop, but at the end of the day, we have to do something about it. If we have a confrontation or we have a disagreement, we talk about it. If we have a fight, then we fight. We just don't have a choice because we have to defend whether it's our honor, our family, our country, or whatnot. We just have to do it, and we have to step up. Sometimes our brands, because like you said, our brands are providing livelihood to some of us. It provides food for our families, so we have to do it. But without getting any deeper into this philosophical conversation,
we'll save that for next time.
Yeah, we'll save that for next time. Justin, thank you so much. Robert, really appreciate everything. Thank you guys, and until next time.